Chapter 29. What price was Lin Jun willing to pay? Logically speaking, for the sake of all living beings in the world, it was not impossible for her to feed a demon with her body. The fairy sect also had such a tradition, but who would ask so directly? Lin Jun couldn't help but glare at Ji Yunan resentfully. If he were to follow the rules of the righteous path and lay out his chariot, then they would be together forever, returning to the righteous path. Even Mo Soundless and the others could only sigh softly. However, she did not know that Ji Yunan was just teasing her casually to see if there would be any missions. He was not really interested in her. Thus, when Lin Jun hesitated, Ji Yunan immediately said with a smile, "It seems that fairy can't give me the price I want. I'll take my leave now." As soon as he said that, his figure instantly turned into a black shadow and fled quietly. A moment later, Ji Yunan's figure reappeared in a corner of the courtyard. "So, teacher likes the big-breasted fairy from the fairy sect?" Yang Xiaoxiao stood beside him and mumbled in a very soft voice. Ji Yunan's face darkened, and he said angrily, "What are you mumbling about? Memorize this list and burn it tomorrow morning. Don't miss a single name. Hee hee. Teacher, what's this?" Yang Xiaoxiao giggled, looking a little mischievous. She did not look like an executioner whose hands were stained with blood and had slaughtered tens of thousands of people. A list of people who view the unorthodox Tao as enemies. There was a strange smile on Ji Yunan's face. War is hell for the weak, but heaven for the strong. Gather these people, and you can build an assassin organization that spans 3 states in a short time. It will become the sharpest sword in your hands. A true assassin can do anything to kill, from framing others, to political strife, to moral blackmail. Killing with one's own hands is only the lowest method. The turmoil in the immortal and demonic world continued. The confrontation between the orthodox and unorthodox Tao became more and more intense, and even the mortal nations participated in the war. Amidst the raging flames of war, an assassin organization called Blue Dragon Hall was quietly rising. One by one, those who were dissatisfied with the corrupt path or had their family members killed in the chaos of war were gathered by people who were extremely hostile to the corrupt path and taught them killing techniques. As a result, from the south-central region, along the 3 prefectures of the Great Void Mountain Range, there were constantly assassinations of evil path experts. These assassinations were mixed in with the chaos of the war and did not attract much attention. After all, countless experts from both sides died every day. Who would have the time to investigate them one by one? In the west of the south-central region, there was a small manor that seemed out of place in this chaotic world. Here, there was a rare tranquility. No one knew when the snowstorm had started, but a layer of white frost had accumulated at the entrance of the manor. Under the night sky, the sound of horse hooves could be heard approaching. A carriage entered the manor, and a young man dressed in white stepped down from it. Returning home on a snowy night. The young man walked in slowly, took off the silver-white cloak behind him, and handed it to the maid beside him. "Where is your young miss?" "Young master, young miss is in the inner hall discussing matters." The young man nodded lightly. Without saying anything, he walked into the garden. Soon, he arrived at the inner hall. There was already a young woman with a solemn expression talking to a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man had a stocky back and a bear's waist. With one look, one could tell that he was a powerful martial artist. However, in front of this young woman who looked like a daughter of a noble family, he seemed submissive and repeatedly nodded. From his words, one could faintly hear the words Hall Master. When the young woman saw the young man, she waved her hand and said, "That's all for today. Tonight, have someone send this list of names over." "Yes, Hall Master." The middle-aged man quickly bowed. Then, he slightly bowed to the young man and left the inner hall. "Teacher." Seeing him leave, the young woman revealed a relieved smile. She grabbed the young man's hand and said, "Teacher, you're all alone outside. You've made me work hard here." The young man rolled his eyes. "I only told you to restrain your killing intent. I didn't tell you to treat yourself as a daughter of a noble family. You don't have to speak like that." These 2 people were naturally Yang Xiaoxiao and Ji Yunan. Ever since Ji Yunan said, "Right now, you're just short of writing the words 'I'm a killer' on your face," Yang Xiaoxiao began to lay down the butcher's knife. She began to be a good daughter of a noble family and also the leader of a killer organization. Yang Xiaoxiao was indeed a natural killer. She had not drawn her sword for almost a month, but Ji Yunan believed that once she drew her sword again, her strength would only be greater than before. Faced with Ji Yunan's lecture, Yang Xiaoxiao did not take it to heart. She ran behind Ji Yunan and massaged his shoulders. She chuckled and said, "Teacher, you came back so quickly this time. Could it be that you've gained something?" Ji Yunan narrowed his eyes and enjoyed it for a while. Then, he slowly nodded. "Not bad. After this time, we just need to wait patiently." He paused and asked, "Did anything happen on Du Mion's side?" "Everything is normal." Yang Xiaoxiao covered her mouth and chuckled, but her eyes were cold. According to teacher's instructions, break the tendons in his limbs once a day. "All right, take me to see him." In the dark dungeon, the two of them walked, one in front and the other behind, all the way to the deepest part. The little devil monarch Du Mion, who was originally in high spirits, was now covered in wounds. His limbs had been pierced and he was chained to the wall. "Ji Yunan, if you have the ability, then kill me. Otherwise, you'll definitely regret it." Du Mion had not seen Ji Yunan for a long time. As soon as he saw him, his eyes immediately turned red and he roared angrily. Ji Yunan spread his hands helplessly. "I didn't leave these wounds on your body. Even if you want to die, why bother looking for me?" Du Mion's face was a little stiff. Of course, he knew very well who the wounds on his body were, but every time his gaze fell on the girl, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart. The dignified little devil monarch had a firm mind, but the experiences of the past month had almost made his mind collapse, and all his demonic arts had backfired on him. Just because his self-healing ability was outstanding, this woman personally came here every day and used a small knife to cut the tendons in his limbs inch by inch. While cutting, she could actually still maintain her calm, and chatted with him as if nothing had happened. Even when she occasionally talked about her teacher, her face would turn a little red, and her hands still did not make the slightest mistake. Seeing that Du Mion did not speak, Ji Yunan stepped forward and patted his shoulder. "Thanks to you, old bro, I finally have a suitable target. You don't have to die." Du Mion was silent for a moment, and snorted. "Then you'd better let me go immediately, or else the elders of my sect will find this place at any time." "Of course I'll let you go." Ji Yunan looked at Du Mion's eyes as if he was looking at a moving sin value. "But, you'll have to wait until you're used up as bait." "What did you say?" Du Mion was suddenly shocked, and an unimaginable thought emerged in his mind. Chapter 30. Han Qiong, junior demon monarch Du Mion's senior uncle and one of the older generation experts of the diabolism, had never paid any attention to a young man. Therefore, when Du Mion said that, he didn't react immediately. It wasn't until the young man, who was less than 10 meters away from him, appeared in front of him at an unbelievable speed that the old demon's expression changed. Shadow power, weakness detection, dragon power. This was the first time Ji Yunan had used his full strength since his fight with Wen Zhongfeng. The shadow earring, the observer's eyepiece, and the dragon heart pendant glowed at the same time. The shadow under his feet spread out and turned into 2 black claws that grabbed Han Qiong's ankles. The punch that had been strengthened by the dragon power smashed toward Han Qiong's head. As long as one was extremely fast, no matter if it was a fist or a sword, any weapon would be fatal. Moreover, one couldn't dodge it and could only take it head-on. Han Qiong was feeling this way. His opponent's punch was too fast. He didn't have time to use his skills because of his underestimation. He could only barely make a hand gesture and cross his arms to block the attack. Crack! Du Mion, who was next to him, clearly heard the sound of bones breaking and felt the terrifying power coming toward him. His face had already turned pale. He seems to have become stronger again. Ji Yunan had indeed become stronger. After unlocking the 3rd equipment tab, his explosive power was no longer at the peak carnate level. His physique and speed had surpassed it in all aspects. The existence of the dragon heart pendant gave him a way to threaten the transcendent master in front of him. The strengthening of the dragon power wasn't unlimited. The stronger one was, the weaker the strengthening would be. With Ji Yunan's current strength, He could roughly strengthen his strength to that of a novice rank 3. A novice rank 3, not a novice transcendent. Such a punch was enough for Han Qiong, a native transcendent, to take seriously. However, Ji Yunan had taken advantage of his underestimation and used Du Mian as bait to distract him. That was why he had unintentionally punched such a punch. Senior Han Qiong was in trouble. He was knocked to the ground by the punch, but he quickly got up and stared at Ji Yunan with a red face. His injury wasn't very serious. It was just that his left wrist was broken. At most, he wouldn't use his left hand for a while. What he was really angry about was that he had been injured by a junior with one punch. The difference between a transcendent and a carnate was like the difference between an immortal and a mortal. Yet, he had been injured by a mortal. The sense of honor that came from his social class kept provoking Han Qiong, causing his anger to accumulate even more. "Brat, I want you to die without a burial. Ha 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 ha. Come at me then." Ji Yunan's arrogant laughter answered him, as well as the back view of him flying away. His strength had reached the peak of the innate realm, and his speed was even more terrifying. With the help of the shadow power, Ji Yunan could indeed run faster than a rabbit. Han Qiong disregarded Du Mian's dissuasion and fiercely stomped her foot before her entire body shot out explosively like a cannonball. After all, she was a transcendent grandmaster who could completely suppress an innate level existence. Han Qiong's speed was not slow at all, and she quickly closed the distance between her and Ji Yunan even though Ji Yunan was only using half of his speed. Even back then, when Zhongfeng had only caught up to Ji Yunan because of the uniqueness of the Qi class. Ji Yunan's speed had already far surpassed that of ordinary transcendents. However, since Ji Yunan had the intention to seduce her, he naturally wouldn't get rid of Han Qiong. Just like that, he pulled out the 4-origin crossbow. Han Qiong sneered inwardly. Given the current situation, he would be able to catch up in 2 breaths of time. That was until a blue crossbow bolt flew over. Wind energy reverberated in the snowy night. Of course, such an arrow would not be able to harm Han Qiong, but it would be able to block his attack. On the other hand, Ji Yunan was the exact opposite. He used the recoil of the wind crossbow bolt to charge forward a bit more, increasing the distance between them once again. Han Qiong's eyes turned slightly cold. He did not say anything else and simply held his breath as he chased. His opponent was only an innate level. How long could he maintain this full speed for? Han Qiong was confident that he could exhaust his opponent to death. Sure enough, before long, he once again caught up to Ji Yunan, and Ji Yunan once again used the wind crossbow bolt to increase the distance between them. After a few rounds of this, just as Han Qiong expected, her opponent's speed gradually decreased, and the extremely fast crossbow bolt no longer appeared. "Your inner breath is almost at its limit, isn't it?" Han Qiong sneered inwardly as he sped up again, rapidly closing the distance between them. However, he did not notice that as the two of them flew further away, they had already arrived at an unknown region. As if he had been forced into a corner, Ji Yunan suddenly turned around and charged towards Han Qiong. Han Qiong immediately perked up. He knew that her opponent was out of strength and was about to go all out. Han Qiong was also an experienced martial artist. The more it was like this, the more cautious he became. However, he would never have thought that every step of his thinking would be completely calculated by his opponent. Seeing that his opponent had indeed become cautious, Ji Yunan smiled inwardly. He put away the 4-origin crossbow and attacked with all his might, completely disregarding his own safety. He attacked with a punch and a kick in midair, completely ignoring the black force around Han Qiong's body. He wanted to exchange injury for injury. "You're courting death." Seeing his opponent in this state, Han Qiong's sneer deepened, and he retaliated with a punch without hesitation. As a transcendent master, how could he be afraid of exchanging injuries with an innate level? Bang! The dull sound of their fists colliding could be heard. Ji Yunan was directly sent flying by this punch, while Han Qiong was completely unharmed. However, he did not expect that as his opponent was sent flying, a red crossbow bolt would be shot at him. It landed right on his chest, and the violent explosion also sent him flying. The explosion did not hurt Han Qiong, but he was slightly puzzled. His strength has decreased so much. Could it be some kind of secret technique? Han Qiong sensed that Ji Yunan's strength had greatly decreased, and he immediately understood. As expected, his only at the innate level. Han Qiong felt confident that he had seen through his opponent's techniques. Meanwhile, Ji Yunan broke out of the smoke. His right hand had already been broken in the previous exchange, so he used his left hand to attack Han Qiong. Han Qiong was very puzzled, and he casually threw a punch in response. However, he was secretly surprised. Does this person not want to live anymore? However, the outcome was beyond his expectations. A terrifying force came from Ji Yunan's fist, and Han Qiong's hand followed in his footsteps. His bones were directly shattered by this strange force. Be ****. Han Qiong bellowed angrily, finally realizing that he had fallen into a trap. However, Ji Yunan was already nowhere to be seen. The two of them had been chasing each other for more than 5 minutes, and the cooldown period for colossal dragon power had already ended. Therefore, Ji Yunan played a trick and injured Han Qiong again. He retreated at full speed, and in the blink of an eye, Ji Yunan was already several dozen feet away from Han Qiong. Chapter 31. Players always had a strong goal in everything they did. They would not do anything without benefits. As a top player, Ji Yunan was not only good at completing quests, but he was also good at achieving multiple goals by doing one thing. For example, ever since he received the news of Bai Luoluo's corruption, he had been thinking about how to solve it. Ji Yunan already had a set of procedures in his mind on how to reshape the little lowly's worldview. Now, the preparatory work was complete. Returning to the astral realm, it had been almost 10 days since he last met Bai Luoluo. Ji Yunan walked to the table and quickly skimmed through the message that Ji Yunyan had sent. His lips curled into a smile as he casually replied, Ji Yunyan. Let's begin. It was late at night. In the mansion of care for one's family, Bai Luoluo lay alone on the bed. She curled up into a ball and wrapped the blanket tightly around her body. The Pure Heart Path was an extremely powerful and strange cultivation method. Cultivating this path could stabilize a cultivator's daoist heart and strengthen their willpower. It was most suitable for inexperienced youths. However, once the strongest link was broken, it would become the weakest link. For those who cultivated the Pure Heart Path, once their daoist heart collapsed, it would be extremely difficult to return to the right path. Bai Luoluo was in such a state. Eldest senior sister, is this kind of person? She's been lying to me. But why would she lie to me? I'm not a child. For the sake of the family, even if I'm cruel. Bai Luoluo was not purely naive. The true contradiction of her pure heart path lay in some deeper questions that even she had been avoiding. Just as she was still struggling with these questions, a series of battle cries came from outside the house. Kill. If that bitch Ji Yunyan doesn't come out, we'll kill everyone in care for one's family. That's right. That Ji Yunyan is vicious and merciless. Back then, she destroyed my entire Wang family. Today, we'll let her have a taste of annihilation. Brothers, follow me and kill. Bai Luoluo jumped up from the bed. Even if there was a problem with her Dao heart, it didn't mean that her power had disappeared. In the face of a matter of life and death, her survival instinct made her quickly raise her spirits. But she was still surprised. Ever since she came to the astral realm, care for one's family and Ji Yunyan's omnipotent image had left a deep impression on her. All of a sudden, someone came to kill her. She couldn't react to such a sudden change. The enemy didn't give her a chance to react. Before Bai Luoluo came back to her senses, the door had been kicked open with a bang, revealing the figures of 2 big men with knives. When the 2 of them saw Bai Luoluo, they didn't even say a word and just pulled out their swords. Damn it! Bai Luoluo's heart tightened, and she quickly dodged. But the 2 of them didn't let her go. They chased after her with 2 knives, and each knife was aimed at Bai Luoluo's throat. This was a fighting method that left no survivors. Although she had practiced martial arts since she was a child, it was the first time that she faced a life and death battle. Bai Luoluo couldn't help but become nervous, and her body's movements also began to change slightly. In the face of 2 experienced opponents, this little bit of nervousness was fatal. In less than 2 rounds, Bai Luoluo's shoulder was slashed by a knife, and blood instantly gushed out. Run! The severe pain made her even more flustered, and she quickly turned around to escape. Then, she made an even more serious mistake, leaving her back to the enemy. The two big men looked at each other and laughed at the same time. After a few leaps, they caught up with the little lowly. They didn't have the slightest bit of tenderness for the fairer sex, and they slashed several times in a row. Ah! The pain from her back almost made the little lowly cry. But in the face of life and death, there was no time for tears. Run, she had to run with her life. She didn't know how long she ran, and she didn't know where she was. Luo didn't even have the courage to look back until she was exhausted. She fell in front of a ruined wall and gasped for breath. However, a voice mixed with a sneer sounded beside her. Run! Why don't you continue to run? Big brother, wait. This little girl looks quite pretty. Why? Are you interested? How can it be? Care for one's family, bitch. I want to scratch her face and sell her to the west of the city. Luo was flustered. She struggled to get up, but she felt that her whole body had no strength, and her whole consciousness was gradually lost. The price of putting on such a show in the city center is not small. I hope you won't let me down. Ji Yunyan looked at the bruised Luo and signaled the doctor next to him to apply medicine for her. Then, he turned to look at Ji Yunan. Anyway, it can't be worse than now. Ji Yunan looked indifferent. Moreover, if you didn't want to control this girl personally, how could you end up like this? There were many ways to practice the pure heart path, but Ji Yunyan chose the list-style cultivation. In Ji Yunan's view, of course, this was because she wanted to strengthen her control over Luo. Even if she grew up in the future, she would not betray care for one's family, at least not herself. Ji Yunan always speculated in the most malicious way about the purpose of anyone's actions. The veins on Ji Yunyan's forehead twitched. What a vile person. Why do you think I asked you to go the same way as her when I left? Heh. Ji Yunan was stunned for a moment, and then laughed awkwardly. It turned out that the first person to be used as a role model was himself. In the end, he was kidnapped to the Ming Lu, so Ji Yunyan had to do it himself. So, Ji Yunan coughed softly. In that case, leave it to me. When Luo woke up again, the first thing she felt was the nauseating smell of blood, mixed with the smell of sweat, rotting corpses, excrement, and so on. She opened her eyes with difficulty, and then she understood her current situation. Mass grave. There were corpses covered with blood everywhere. Under her left palm, there was a prolapsed eyeball, and there were 2 pieces of broken intestines hanging on her stomach. It was not her own. If it was before, perhaps the little lowly would have already screamed. Now, she resisted the nausea, slowly stood up, and moved to the side with difficulty. There was a small river there. Feeling that her body was fine, Luo decided to wash herself first. However, when the river reflected her face, she finally couldn't help but scream. Ah! Who is this? Luo suddenly sat on the ground. The appearance of the person in the water was completely different from before, except for one thing: her face was scratched with a sharp object. Only then did the little lowly feel the burning pain on her face. There were dozens of wounds of different depths, and they constantly stimulated her nerves. Why is it like this? Luo finally couldn't help but cry out. Her hands fiercely hit the ground, as if she was complaining about fate. Are you the lucky one who survived the war? A soft voice came from her ear. It's quite pitiful to have your face disfigured. You will follow me from now on. Chapter 32. After sending the little white lowly to the immortal and demon world, Ji Yunan stayed in the astral realm and did not start a new round of reincarnation. When he was setting up in the immortal and demon world, Ji Yunyan sent him several messages, urging him to find an identity in the astral realm as soon as possible. The astral realm was an autonomous federal system. The situation in the 9th star sector was that the 3 administrative planets looked after each other, and the residents of the Red Carp only needed to accept the jurisdiction of the Red Carp government. Ji Yunan entered the Red Carp with a legal identity, and naturally came under the supervision of the government. If he lived in seclusion for a long time, he would soon attract the attention of the relevant departments, which would be a very troublesome matter. Because reincarnation was illegal. That's right, Although many people in the astral realm used reincarnation as a way of cultivation, reincarnation was an illegal act under the current law. Once discovered, there would not be any punishment, but the cultivator himself would be expelled from the country. When Ji Yunan first heard about this, he was also in a state of confusion. Later, he found out that reincarnation was not in line with humanitarianism. On the other hand, Ji Yunan really needed a job in the astral realm. Qin Xuanji also told him about the way to obtain world missions in the astral realm. Most of the materials needed were relatively common, but one of them needed to be made by buying raw materials. Ji Yunan did not want to buy such a key material through others to care for one's family, so he could only find a way to buy it himself. So, the job that Ji Yunan found for me is to be a combat coach? Ji Yunan asked casually as he walked down from a hover car and followed behind the girl. Big sister said this is the best for you. Ji Xingzhu turned around and looked up and down at Ji Yunan's small body. The words "I don't believe it" were written on her face. Ji Yunyan was already half a parent of care for one's family. As the only person of the younger generation who had advanced to the transcendent level, she had too many things to do. Of course, she could not look for Ji Yunan all day. Therefore, Ji Xingzhu became their liaison. Originally, Ji Xingzhu was not very willing to contact the poisonous snake Ji Yunan, but she could not disobey Ji Yunyan's order. Lu Xinyu's understanding of Ji Xingzhu was actually old history. In fact, Lu Xinyu's understanding of Ji Xingzhu was already quite old. Ever since Ji Yunyenji had ascended, competition had lost its meaning unless a second extraordinary level master was born before Ji Yunyenji completely took control of the Jiyu family. Ji Xingzhu was one of the first to surrender to Ji Yunyenji. Transcendent and innate transcendent level. Ji Yunan did not react to Ji Xingzhu's doubts. He only nodded and said, "It's indeed suitable for me." Fortunately, Ji Yunyan could help Ji Yunan find such a suitable job. He only needed to come here a few times a week, and he could even ask for leave in advance. Even his profession was quite suitable. Ji Yunan's forte had never been in martial arts, but in fighting techniques. Ji Yunyenji already knew this when she was in the Langya world. Ji Xingzhu shrugged and said, "Then come in with me. I have to remind you that the boss of this fight club is not easy to talk to." Ji Yunan did not even reply this time. The two of them walked into the fight club called Samsara one after the other. A fight club with such an artistic name was still thriving. It was obvious that it was not simple. "Xingzhu, how come you have time to come here today?" A young girl saw the two of them and asked in pleasant surprise, "How about a round?" "Sure. I've improved a lot in the past 2 months." Ji Xingzhu smiled brightly when she saw the girl. When the girl walked closer, she said, "But I have to bring him to see your brother first. This is Ji Yunan, he's here to apply for the fight coach position. He's my distant cousin." "Cousin?" Ji Yunan emphasized indifferently. Ji Xingzhu's face darkened. She rolled her eyes at him and introduced, "Wang Lishi, the second in command of this club. Her brother is the boss." Wang Lishi looked at Ji Yunan curiously, and Ji Yunan had the same expression. "Wang Lishi, is your brother called Wang Strawberry?" "Of course not. What man is called Strawberry?" Wang Lishi showed a look of disdain. "He's called Wang Jelly." "Oh, that's very manly." Ji Yunan nodded. The three of them walked together and soon arrived inside the club to meet the legendary boss, Wang Jelly. When they saw him, he was teaching a few students. When he saw the three of them, he let the students train on their own for the time being and walked over. Wang Jelly was also a slightly skinny man. He looked to be in his 30s, but one could not judge a book by its cover. Not only was he the boss of the club, he was also the #1 coach. In other words, he was the best fighter here. Wang Jelly was quite direct. "You're Ji Yunan, right? You're here at the right time. We've always been short of coaches, but we can't find a professional. Let's try first." "Okay, is it here?" Ji Yunan didn't say much and just looked around. This should be a public training room. Many coaches were training the students, and there were many people around watching. "Yes." Wang Jelly nodded without hesitation. Then he felt that it was a little rude, so he explained with a smile, "Sorry, it's training time now, Ji Yunan nodded. Just as he was about to speak, someone ran over in a hurry. Brother Jelly, Miss Shu. Ah! It was a man in a coach's uniform. He ran to Wang Jelly's side and said anxiously. Halfway through, he realized that there was an outsider present and quickly shut his mouth. Wang Jelly did not care about this. He frowned and said, even old Lin can't do it. Yes. The man smiled bitterly. Miss Shu came to the club again tonight. Coach Lin lost 5 matches. According to the previous agreement, it's time for you to be my personal coach, Coach Wang. A slightly cold female voice came from behind the man and took over his words. Everyone could not help but look back. They saw a girl in loose sportswear standing there with a cold expression. Her hands were crossed in front of her chest, and the cuffs on her right hand were slightly torn. With one look, Ji Yunan knew that it was caused by the recent battle. This is Shu Feiyan, the pearl of Shu's family. Don't provoke her. Ji Xingzhu whispered in Ji Yunan's ear, as if she was afraid that he would stand up for her. In Ji Xingzhu's eyes, Ji Yunan was a complete prick who dared to do anything that was taboo. Of course, this perception did not seem to be wrong. The pearl of the family. So, she's very rich. Ji Yunan thought for a moment and asked. Of course she's rich. Ji Xingzhu answered subconsciously, but then she glared at him fiercely. She's very rich, but you have to be alive to take it. Chapter 33. 20 standard units of star iron, thank you. In the middle of the night, Ji Yunan walked out of the rare metal shop alone, cursing the price of the last material in his heart. His work as a personal trainer was calculated by the number of sessions. He had received 3 sessions of training in advance from Jelly Wang before he came to buy star iron. Jelly Wang was straightforward and agreed without hesitation. In fact, if Ji Yunan could help him get rid of the scourge Shu Feiyan, not to mention this small amount of salary, he was even willing to double it. However, all the money Ji Yunan had on him was only enough to buy 20 units of the material. To purify star iron, at least half of it will be consumed. I don't know how many times it will be used in the end. Ji Yunan cursed in his heart. He found a reason to postpone the training of Shu Feiyan to the next time. It was also somewhat selfish, because he was in a hurry to buy star iron and search for free world missions. With his current 48 sin points, as long as he did one more mission, there was a high chance that he could break through the 50 mark. Once he became a transcendent, he would have the capital to settle down in the astral world. When he returned to the hidden hut that Ji Yunyenji had provided for him, there were already 2 people waiting there. As soon as they saw Ji Yunan, they came up to him and said, Mr. Ji Yu, Miss wants to take Miss Bai back. Ji Yunan looked into the room. Bai Luo was lying in the culture chamber, her whole body soaked in green nutrient solution. The injuries on her body had basically recovered, and there was not a trace of injury on her face. She was sent to the immortal and demon world by Ji Yunan after she fainted, so her body was naturally left in the astral world. Previously, Ji Yunan wanted to protect the coordinates of the immortal and demon world and personally guided her to reincarnate, but now it didn't matter. Ian, you can bring her back. So Ji Yunan nodded. Tell Ji Yunyan, if there are any changes in her, inform me immediately. With regards to the incident, Ji Yunan would definitely not take it lightly. Yes. After sending off Bai Luo, Ji Yunan took out the star iron that he had just obtained. He placed it in a jade container and placed it on the flame. Star iron was a very special kind of metal. It had to be stored in cold storage. It would melt into a liquid with just a little bit of heat, and it would quickly vaporize if the temperature was just a little bit higher. The flame Ji Yunan used was also very special. It was ignited by a special fuel, snow congealing ointment, which could control the temperature and keep the star iron in a liquid state. This step was quite smooth, and he succeeded in a short while. Ji Yunan then threw in some golden powder. The golden powder was the fine gold used as an absorbent. As soon as it entered the liquid, the entire liquid began to shrink rapidly. The original black color also began to rapidly turn into gold. It's done, it's not that hard. Ji Yunan heaved a sigh of relief. The entire purification process took less than 2 minutes, but the technical content was not simple. At least, Even an official alchemist would not be able to pick out Ji Yunan's mistakes. After all, he had practiced this many times in the world of immortals and demons. The final result was similar to what Ji Yunan had expected. 20 units of star iron could only produce 8 units of star gold. The purification rate was only 40%. However, this could not be helped. Ji Yunan quickly calmed himself down and began to immerse himself in the drawing of the formation pattern. The method that Qin Xuanji provided him to accept the task was to find a platform that publicized the task to the outside world, and then accept and complete the task in a private manner. The existence of the world's task was very strange. They were produced by the world's will, but they also drifted away from the world's will. There must be a professional translator to let the cultivator understand the meaning. As the business of reincarnation became popular, organizations that specialized in translation gradually formed and released tasks to the outside world to benefit from it. Completing the world's task could indeed benefit, but most of these benefits were obtained by the translators. For example, Ming Lu and the organization that Ji Yunan was about to contact. As the inscription on the ground lit up, a golden light gradually emerged. A line of text was directly reflected in his line of sight. Welcome to the Astral Gate. Newcomer, please leave your codename. Evil God. Codename confirmed. You currently have level E authority. Please check the available tasks. Astral Gate, this was the name of this organization. As an organization that was open to all reincarnators, their docking system was very complete. It could even be completed by Ji Yunan alone. Ji Yunan used his consciousness to click on the task list. However, there was no series of tasks appearing. Instead, another sentence appeared. Detected that this is your first time accepting a task. You will be randomly assigned 5 available tasks. You will need to wait for 1 day to refresh the task. Detected that this is your first time accepting a task. You will need to pay 5 units of star gold as a deposit. The deposit will be returned after the first task is completed. 2 consecutive notifications popped up, causing Ji Yunan's eyelids to twitch. He could only choose 5 tasks at a time. The cooldown period for resetting the task was 1 day. He also needed to pay 5 units of star gold as a deposit. 1 unit of star gold was only enough to open the astral gate twice. In the end, it asked for 5 units at once. Fortunately, it was only a deposit. In order to earn sin points, Ji Yunan couldn't care so much anymore. He immediately started to check the tasks. In Ji Yunan's eyes, the difficulty of the 5 tasks was not high. They were all small-scale tasks. However, one of them attracted his attention at first glance. Task objective: protect the White Dew Goddess. Task plane: foreign world, White Fog Plane. Task accepted count: 3 task details: head to the plane and protect the target for 5 days. This task is a team task. The maximum number of people is 4. Ji Yunan frowned. A team task with a count of 3 meant that 3 people had already accepted the task. However, someone did not agree and wanted to wait for 1 more person. After all, the more people there were, the higher the chance of completing the task. What attracted Ji Yunan's attention the most was the task itself. White Dew Goddess. This is a character in the game. Ji Yunan couldn't help but recall his past life. He remembered the time he struggled in the game. There was even a dungeon to protect the White Dew Goddess in the game. He just didn't know if it was the same in this life. Unexpectedly seeing a familiar task, Ji Yunan didn't hesitate and chose to accept it. Task accepted successfully. The number of people has reached the limit. Please start the task as soon as possible. After accepting the task, the light of the astral gate dimmed. After all, this was only a platform to accept tasks and not a reincarnation circle. Ji Yunan activated the reincarnation ritual beside him. He entered the coordinates of the plane and the reincarnation ritual appeared again. Ji Yunan's body was stored in the endless void. His soul was slowly pulled out and entered the reincarnation gate. Chapter 34. Players were the most bored group of people in the world. If they had enough time, they could study every detail of the game and the characteristics of every NPC. Protect the Goddess of White Dew was a level 2 instance dungeon and one of the early dungeons in the game. It could be reset infinitely in the game. When players became strong enough to conquer the dungeons, there would naturally be bored people who would come back and study these dungeons thoroughly. Not only did they know the strategy, but they also knew the story background and the NPC's Easter eggs. So, when Ji Nan saw the old Mayor Moffat, he immediately felt relieved. If this was the dungeon in the game, he could clear it even with his eyes closed. While Ji Nan was looking around, the other 3 people had already started talking to the mayor to find out more about the quest. Ji Nan listened on the side for a while and was surprised to find that the standard of these 3 people was much higher than Ming Lu's group of people when it came to completing missions. Even Land Marigold, who previously looked like a silly girl, was so capable that she didn't seem like the same person. Is it because a solo reincarnator has to rely on themselves, so they are more capable, or is it because the overall standard of the branch is too low? This question surfaced in Ji Nan's mind. Luo Sheng and Danny had already walked far away. Land Marigold looked at Ji Nan with a puzzled expression. Aren't you going to learn more about the quest? Ji Nan shook his head, indicating that he wasn't interested. Of course, he could even recite the lines of a few key NPCs. What was there to learn? Land Marigold looked at him strangely, but in the end, she didn't say anything. In her eyes, Ji Nan's image was somewhat mysterious. It had been like this since they started in the astral realm. She didn't expect him to be a reincarnator. A moment later, the 3 people gathered again. The information they received was more or less the same. The demon army will invade from the west. We have half a day to prepare, Danny summarized in simple words. Luo Sheng nodded and added, there are items in town that can restrain demons. If we participate in the battle, we can use them for free. However, these items are limited, so we have to use them carefully, Land Marigold said with a frown. The 3 of them spoke one after another, then turned their heads to look at Ji Nan. Although it was necessary to share information as companions, if you wanted to get information for free. Of course, no one would immediately turn hostile, but secretly rolling their eyes was unavoidable. Land Marigold's eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. She really wanted to use this opportunity to probe Ji Nan's background. Ji Nan didn't think too much about it. In order to complete the mission, he didn't mind giving them some pointers. Do you see that? Ji Nan pointed to a little white dog on the side of the road. The 3 of them turned their heads at the same time, startling the white dog. What's wrong with that dog? Luo Sheng asked curiously. This dog is called a green-feathered dog. There are 3 of them in this town. On the first day, a flying demon will appear. Use the neck hair of the green-feathered hound to lure it over and kill it. Ji Nan didn't even bat an eyelid as he said, if we don't do this, we can only rely on a large amount of molten fire medicine to kill it. That would be a huge loss. This guide was so detailed that Luo Sheng and Danny looked at each other. The latter hesitantly said, this town isn't big, so it's not difficult to find dogs. But, how did you know? Oh, a beggar just passed by and told me, Ji Nan said casually. The 3 of them looked at him in disbelief. You don't believe me? Then there's nothing I can do. Ji Nan shrugged. The beggar left. Even though they didn't really believe Ji Nan's excuse, finding 3 dogs wasn't a difficult task, so they believed him for the time being. As companions on the mission, their standpoints were very pure. There was no conflict of interest between them, so why would he lie to them? After collecting the fur of the 3 dogs, the 3 of them asked the people in the town what help they could provide. They got a bunch of weapons, medicine, and methods to restrain demons. The 3 of them were quite good at the mission. They knew that these things wouldn't all be used on the first day, so they found a place not far from the front line as a temporary stronghold and storage place. This way, it would be convenient for resting personnel to rush over, and it would also make it easier to control the resources. During this process, Land Marigold and the other 2 were basically busy, while Ji Nan was the observer. Although Ji Nan knew what they would need on the first day, he couldn't say it all. That would make him look too fake. How could a beggar know so much? The first wave of attack came in the evening. Like a tide of monsters, they made people's scalps go numb. These monsters all looked strange and terrifying. There were 6-headed ogres, 10-meter-tall evil eyes, and giant spiders that were dozens of meters long. Are these demons? Although Danny was experienced, she had never seen such a scene. She couldn't help but feel her breathing quicken. Luo Sheng's face was also somewhat pale. On the other hand, Land Marigold was able to maintain her calm. After all, she was from a large family. As for Ji Yunan, it didn't matter. If these people had seen the scene of war in God Kingdom, they would know that this couldn't even be considered a small skirmish. Don't be in a hurry. This is just the vanguard of the demons. Let the NPCs, let the natives exhaust them first, Ji Yunan said calmly, almost spilling the beans. Perhaps they were infected by Ji Yunan's calm tone, but they subconsciously chose to listen. The town guards also rushed out and charged at the demonic army from all directions. The ground outside the town was instantly dyed red. The demons didn't make Ji Yunan and the others wait for too long. After a short while, 4 larger demons appeared. They were obviously the leaders of the small groups. Let's do it. Ji Yunan commanded out of habit. Pay attention to the demons around them. Those are elite guards. Their stats are 30% higher than normal guards. The 3 of them were stunned. After saying this, Ji Yunan shook his head slightly. He thought to himself, I've gotten too into character. He ran straight for the front lines. The first day's attack was to allow the players to get used to the gameplay, so it wouldn't be too difficult. According to this world's calculations, the strength of the demon leaders was roughly around innate stage 5. Luo Sheng and Danny were both innate stage 6, and Land Marigold was slightly weaker at innate stage 5. If they weren't on the battlefield and surrounded by elite guards, the 4 of them would be able to deal with them in a few moves. Luo Sheng was a martial adept. He used a giant sword, and with a single sweep, he killed over 10 demons. He charged straight into the battlefield. Danny, on the other hand, was a spirit-type adept. She muttered an incantation, and a ball of fire rained down around the demon leaders. Screams of agony rang out. Land Marigold was slightly weaker, but she practiced martial arts and spirit-type secret arts. She was extremely agile, and with a few jumps, she entered the battlefield. Any demon that got close to her was charmed, and they couldn't even get within 3 feet of her. The 3 of them used their own methods to take control of the battlefield. Then, they turned to look at Ji Yunan. They were very curious about this mysterious companion of theirs. Chapter 35. Ji Yunan's target was the furthest, and he wasn't moving very quickly. So, when the 3 of them looked at him, he was just about to come into contact with the demons. The 3 of them were waiting to see how he would deal with the demons, but they never expected that Ji Yunan would disappear into thin air right before their eyes. Without any warning, without any fluctuation of internal energy, he disappeared as if he had become a living person. Land Marigold, who had been paying the most attention to Ji Yunan, froze. She was almost caught by a demon. In just half a breath's time, Ji Yunan's figure appeared out of thin air again. He had already circled to the back of the demon leader and fiercely punched it. The demon leader didn't even have a chance to react. His head burst open, and red and white fluid splashed all over the ground. The surrounding demons fell silent. Roar. Following that, a louder and louder roar sounded, but Ji Yunan had already left. The entire process didn't take more than half a minute. The 3 onlookers were dumbfounded until Ji Yunan shouted, "What are you guys looking at? Hurry up and get rid of the target." Night slowly fell. The first wave of attacks was nearing its end, and 3 waves of demon leaders had appeared. Although the intensity of the attacks had increased, the 4 of them could still easily deal with them. This was especially true for Ji Yunan. Not a single demon could withstand a single punch from him. Luo Sheng couldn't help but wonder if his greatsword could withstand a single punch from Ji Yunan. "The flying demon you mentioned, is it going to appear?" The 4 of them stood within the town's walls. Land Marigold couldn't help but ask Ji Yunan curiously. At this moment, they no longer doubted Ji Yunan's words. However, they still didn't have any concept of what a flying demon was. "How would I know? That beggar didn't say anything." Ji Yunan rolled his eyes and casually replied. Of course, He knew very well that when there was only 1% of the demons left, the flying demon would appear. It's here. A sharp laughter rang out, and Ji Yunan immediately became spirited. He hurriedly called out to the others, "Bring out the neck fur of the green-feathered dog." Not long after, balls of light green fur were placed in front of Ji Yunan. According to the theory in the game, the hair on the neck of the green-feathered hound had the ability to absorb energy. Before it lost its vitality, it could automatically gather air energy, which was a fatal temptation for the flying demon. A black silhouette rose and fell a few times in the distant sky, quickly arriving before the four of them. An astonishing aura spread out. Transcendence. Luo Sheng exclaimed. No, it's a pseudo-transcendent. Land Marigold, who was at the side, said in a low voice, he only has the embryonic form of the supernatural power. His actual realm has not reached that stage yet. The so-called pseudo-transcendent referred to experts who already possessed basic divine abilities but had yet to reach the required realm. In fact, the current Ji Yunan was also considered to be at this stage. However, even if she wasn't a true transcendent, Land Marigold's expression didn't look good. Firstly, pseudo-transcendents were not easy to deal with. Secondly, this was only the first day. A pseudo-transcendent had actually appeared. How were they going to deal with it? Luo Sheng's expression was solemn, while Danny gritted her teeth, seemingly considering how to deal with it. Only Ji Yunan's expression didn't change. More than half of the neck hair on the table had been grabbed by the flying demon, while the rest was taken by Ji Yunan. The flying demon, who had stopped, had already revealed itself. Its skin was green, it had a big bald head, a green face, and sharp fangs. It was very much in line with the image of a demon. It stuffed the neck hair into its mouth and swallowed it. Then, it looked at Ji Yunan, roared fiercely, and clawed at him. Be careful. Land Marigold and the other two exclaimed at the same time. This demon clearly had a speed-type supernatural power, so its physical strength was definitely not to be underestimated. However, Ji Yunan laughed sinisterly, and the dragon heart pendant on his neck suddenly lit up. His right hand reached out and instantly grabbed the demon's arm. The flying demon was stunned. It didn't see how the other party moved at all, and it instantly had a bad feeling. Ji Yunan grabbed its arm and lifted it up, and then he smashed it heavily onto the ground behind him. A terrifying bang resounded out, and a crack actually appeared on the ground from the impact. Boom! 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 Ji Yunan had no intention of stopping. He swung the flying demon around like a ball. Only after 5 seconds had passed did Ji Yunan slowly let go. At that moment, the flying demon could only lie on the ground, foaming at the mouth and unable to make a single sound. Ji Yunan exhaled softly. Then, he raised the dragon heart pendant and smiled at the three of them. Unconventional means, have a good rest tonight. Tomorrow's attack will be even fiercer. Night had completely fallen. Ji Yunan was alone in the temporary tent, his eyes closed as he rested. He had practically single-handedly dealt with the first day's attack. Naturally, this wasn't because Ji Yunan was willing to help others. Rather, he felt that there was no need to use up the limited support items he had on the first day. Even though it was a low-level instance dungeon, the difficulty of White Dew Guardian was not low. His goal was to deal with the last 2 days in the best condition possible. When a true expert carried a smurf, they would never only care about showing off. Instead, they would try their best to reduce the difficulty of the quest. Of course, it would be even better if they could show off while they were at it. Ji Yunan. A soft call came from outside the temporary tent. The corners of Ji Yunan's mouth could not help but reveal a trace of a smile. Come in. Land Marigold's figure appeared. She seemed to be complaining and asking, why did you come to this place? Anyway, the demons will only come tomorrow. You should have a good rest and rest up. They had chased away the demons today and were the town's heroes. Naturally, they had a comfortable place to stay. Isn't it convenient for me to wait for you to come? Ji Yunan said with a faint smile. If I stayed there, there would be too many people. That was actually an excuse. Because Ji Yunan knew that there would be a wave of demons attacking at night. If he stayed in the temporary tent in advance, it would not be too abrupt when he attacked. Naturally, Land Marigold did not know about that. When she heard Ji Yunan's words, an indescribable look flashed through her eyes. However, she smiled and said, "Let's do it." It was common for reincarnations to do it. On one hand, the quest was stressful. On the other hand, it was not their own body, so there was no loss. "Okay, take off your clothes." Ji Yunan's eyes were calm and there was a faint smile on his face. Land Marigold's mouth twitched. In the end, she did not do anything. The two of them looked at each other silently for 3 seconds. In the end, Miss Lu could not take it anymore. She said in a deep voice, "I want to tell you today that this quest is not as simple as you think." "Oh." Ji Yunan's face finally revealed a look of curiosity. He wanted to know what else he did not know about this instance dungeon. Land Marigold hesitated for a moment. "It is not convenient for me to go into the details. I hope I am overthinking it. Anyway, be careful of Danny." Be careful of Danny? Ji Yunan's mind flashed through his companion's previous actions. He did not see anything wrong. After saying that, Land Marigold turned to leave. However, just as she was about to walk out of the tent, Ji Yunan's words came from behind her, almost causing her to stumble. Chapter 36. When Ji Yunan and Luo Sheng arrived outside the house, a loud roar could be heard coming from inside. As an experienced veteran in his previous life, Ji Yunan naturally knew what this roar meant. On the other hand, Land Marigold's face was flushed red. This adulterous couple, Ji Yunan smiled. He did not say anything and pushed open the door. Inside the house, the two people were doing what everyone loved to do. The bedding had already fallen to the ground and the two of them were naked. When they saw Ji Yunan and Land Marigold enter, they jumped in fright. "Ji Yunan? Why are you here?" Luo Sheng was a little embarrassed, but he did not fly into a rage. Perhaps to him, this was not a big deal. Before Ji Yunan could say anything, Land Marigold angrily said, "Danny, stop pretending. You're an enemy mission enforcer." Only then did Luo Sheng's expression change. He retracted his arms from Danny. It wasn't that he did not suspect Danny's strange behavior today. Firstly, she had fallen into a sweet dream. Secondly, she did not consider it as an enemy mission. Now that he heard Land Marigold's words, he became vigilant. Danny was stunned. It took her a long time to react. You're talking nonsense." Land Marigold sneered. "If it wasn't an enemy mission, would you, as Yantian Stage 6 expert, be injured by a low-level demon on the battlefield?" Danny's face turned green and white, but she could not find a reason. Luo Sheng felt a chill in his heart when he saw her like this. He hurriedly climbed out of the bed. Danny stared at him in a daze. Speechless. "Then prepare to die." Land Marigold was like a hot-tempered little girl. She raised her hand and slapped Danny's forehead, killing her instantly. This. Luo Sheng could only watch as she made her move. He could not react in time. Both he and Danny were seriously injured and could not resist. He could only look at Ji Yunan. She did the right thing. Ji Yunan chuckled. "Since he's a traitor, of course, we have to eliminate him as soon as possible, and we don't have much time left." What? This time, even Land Marigold was stunned. "The final wave has arrived." As Ji Yunan's voice faded, the battle cries that rose and fell outside the town finally reached their ears. "Ji Yunan, thank goodness I have you." Outside the town, Land Marigold heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the traps and arrow towers that had been set up long ago. The evil demon army was completely blocked outside. Her eyes were a little blurred, as if she was admiring Ji Yunan's foresight. Ji Yunan leisurely smiled and indifferently said, "Let's do it. There are no shortcuts on the last day. Use all the resources that can be used. We can only rely on ourselves." Danny was already dead, and Luo Sheng was basically out of combat power, so he was resting in the town. Ji Yunan and Lu Zhanyu were the only ones left. Fortunately, the strength of the final wave of evil demons was not much stronger than the previous wave. In fact, it was even weaker than the fourth wave. White Dew Guardian was only a level 2 instance dungeon. It was impossible for a level 3 instance dungeon to appear. Thus, they could only play some tactical tricks. In the beginning, they used up the players' tools and the number of NPC townspeople. The designers wanted to gradually nibble away at the players' cards. As for the final wave of attacks, they took into account the players' inertia and wanted to catch them off guard. Once the evil demons broke through the town walls, they would have to fight in the streets. The difficulty of the instant's dungeon would soar. The evil demons were much stronger than the NPCs in a one-on-one fight. However, against a player like Ji Yunan, these methods were useless. At present, not only did they have more than half of the resources left, the town's militia also had combat strength. The night raid did not work either. Even if there were only 2 players left, it would not be difficult to defend the town. As the number of evil demons dwindled, the final boss appeared. However, it ate the final weakening scroll and fell under the siege of the townspeople. With that, the instant's dungeon came to an end. In gaming terms, this was basically the CG stage. All the players needed to do was to watch the show. Ji Yunan, after we return to the astral plane, make sure to keep in touch. Land Marigold giggled in a girlish tone. Can we do the next quest together? Sure. Ji Yunan readily agreed. It's a pleasure working with you. By the way, did you kill Luo Sheng? Kill. Land Marigold blurted out. Then, she froze. She forced a smile and asked, "What are you talking about?" There was a sincere smile on Ji Yunan's face. I mean, did you kill Luo Sheng before you left? Since you've already killed Danny, he won't make a difference. The smile on Land Marigold's face gradually faded and she remained silent. By the way, considering how cautious you are, you should have gotten rid of his corpse, right? Ji Yunan continued to speak to himself. If I had completed the quest and wanted to go back to check on him, I wouldn't be able to explain myself if I found his corpse. Ji Yunan's voice slowly echoed in the room. Land Marigold finally smiled again. However, this time, her smile was very calm. Her face was as cold as it had been when she first arrived. Anger, admiration, anticipation, all these emotions had disappeared without a trace. How did you find out? She was purely curious. You asked me something, Ji Yunan replied calmly. You asked me if I should use the final weakening scroll. Land Marigold frowned and pondered for a moment. Then, she guessed, you think it's a waste of resources, so you suspect that I'm an enemy? No, there are no enemies for this quest. Ji Yunan's tone was very certain. I just feel that someone who simply wants to complete the quest wouldn't ask such a question. You should understand. You just need to believe me. So, why ask so many questions? Later, you came to me and said that you were going to kill Danny. At that time, I understood. Ji Yunan stared into the girl's eyes. You were testing me, testing whether I had enough confidence. Land Marigold showed a self-deprecating expression. So, I lost to your narcissism. You even doubted other people's questions. Ji Yunan shrugged and indicated that he had no comment on this. So what exactly is the reason you killed them? You don't know? This time, it was Land Marigold's turn to be surprised. The reward given by the astral world for the group quest is fixed. The fewer the people in the group, the more the reward. In other words, the fewer the people who survive, the more the reward. Ji Yunan suddenly understood and gave her a thumbs up. Women are indeed the most vicious. Land Marigold's mouth twitched. She was speechless at Ji Yunan's praise. So, are you going to kill me now? Land Marigold raised her head and looked at Ji Yunan. She pointed at herself. Kill this vicious woman and enjoy the reward alone. Of course not. Ji Yunan refused without hesitation. As I said, we had a good time working together. We can still team up in the future. I'll be responsible for completing the quest. You'll be responsible for tricking your teammates. Chapter 37. Dungeon Main Quest completed. Main Quest Evaluation, B. Side Quest Development Rate, D. Map Exploration Rate, C. Crime Rating, B. Overall Evaluation, B. Accumulated Points, 100. Accumulated Crime Points, 3. When Ji Yunan returned to the astral realm, the notification in the evil god's shrine gradually appeared. Although there were some accidents in the Protect the White Dew quest, Ji Yunan was still satisfied. Not only did he successfully obtain the reward, but he also got to know a reliable partner. That's right, even if Land Marigold's actions were not right, betraying her teammates for the sake of the reward, Ji Yunan did not mind. To put it bluntly, he had seen even more immoral and ridiculous things in the game in his previous life. Most of the players in the Evil God game had no morals, so this kind of thing was all too common. If a few players cooperated sincerely in a dungeon, then either there was no benefit in betraying one's teammates, or the quest was too difficult and they could not afford to lose even one person. As for whether Land Marigold would betray him or not, Ji Yunan was not afraid. He was always on guard against everyone around him, not one more. Most importantly, he was about to advance to Tier 3. There was no way he would be afraid that Land Marigold would resist him. After receiving the mission reward, Ji Yunan had 1010 game points and 51 sin points, which was just enough for him to advance to the next level. After entering the Evil God's shrine, Ji Yunan sat quietly on the Evil God's throne for a while, allowing his emotions to gradually calm down, before giving the order. Advancement. Exchange item, Evil God Advancement. Currently a Tier 2 Evil God. Advancement cost, 1000 points. Crime point requirement, 50. Requirements met. Advancement begins. About to advance to Tier 3 Evil God, please choose your core skill. Shadow. Choosing his core skill, Ji Yunan naturally chose the path that he was most familiar with in his previous life, Shadow. Shadow, or the Law of Shadow, was one of the highest level laws in the game. It was an existence of two sides to the Law of Light, and it was ranked first among the core skills. Of course, the higher the level of a skill, the higher the skill's control. A pro player like Ji Yunan was not worried about this. As an inexplicable force entered his body, Ji Yunan felt as if he was in an infinite void, and a force was approaching from afar, slowly devouring the entire night sky. This is the power of shadows. Endless comprehension surged into Ji Yunan's mind, giving him a splitting headache. After all, reality wasn't a game. His body could be strengthened, but when Ji Yunan began to enter the transcendent phase, he couldn't grasp the so-called natal techniques out of thin air. Unless he could comprehend all of this, his strength would not be able to keep up with his realm. Of course, this was not difficult for Ji Yunan. For a high-end player like him, his comprehension was already top-notch, and his understanding of the shadow element was also far beyond a normal person's. He knew every single usage of the shadow element like the back of his hand. All he lacked was the theory behind it. And those insights from the evil divine palace had helped him understand everything. From now on, even without the evil divine palace, Ji Yunan might still be able to comprehend the law of shadow on his own. In the empty palace, Ji Yunan stood alone at the center. The dark shadow gradually spread from his feet until it covered the entire palace. At a certain moment, the shadow suddenly slowed down. In Ji Yunan's consciousness, a certain force from far away seemed to have somehow descended on him, trying to stop him from making a breakthrough. However, the force was too weak. It disappeared in the blink of an eye after being washed away by the law of shadow at the origin level. Is this karma? I left it in the Langya world, but I didn't expect it to be so useless. Ji Yunan washed away the force and shook his head. After a long time, Ji Yunan slowly opened his eyes. The shadow under his feet suddenly expanded and then disappeared. Shadow body. He stretched out his right hand and clenched it. A pitch-black long sword gradually formed. The sword was thin and long, and it flickered with a faint black glow. The familiar touch made Ji Yunan smile. He held his sword and stabbed it lightly, causing a strange ripple to reverberate. After successfully advancing to rank 3, not only did his body toughen up to an unprecedented level, but he also truly obtained the core skill, shadow power. According to the cultivation theory of the cosmic realm, going from innate to transcendent was a process of soul transformation. Although the theory of the evil god's advancement was different, the final result was similar. Ji Yunan's soul was also greatly strengthened, and the power of his skills had reached rank 3. It was no longer the castrated version that relied on equipment. More importantly, because of the effect of the shadow earring, his shadow power was actually rank 2. As a core skill, shadow power had the open skill hidden shadow at rank 1, and shadow body at rank 2. Shadow body was used to control shadows to create things. Not only could it create a weapon that was extremely convenient and could change at any time, but it could also transform into armor for defense. At the highest level, it could even create a humanoid clone. Shadow was worthy of being one of the top core skills. Not only was it powerful, but it was also ridiculously difficult to use. Ordinary players would need at least 3 to 5 years of practice to create a clone. Of course, this was not a difficult task for Ji Yunan. After practicing shadow body, Ji Yunan's consciousness returned to his body. The next step is to go to the immortal and demon world. With my current strength, hunting transcendent is no longer difficult, and I can also earn a wave of sin points and points. Ji Yunan was thinking about his next move. Although he had advanced to rank 3 and had 50 sin points, it was still not enough. The next 3 points were 100, 200, and 300. 3 normal skill bars would be opened, and he could buy normal skills. Core skills would also be upgraded. If he wanted to advance to rank 4, he would need a total of 500 sin points. The number of points needed was even more astronomical, and Ji Yunan had to free up some points to buy some rank 3 equipment. For example, the Observer's Eyepiece and even the 4 Origin crossbow could already be used up, and they were just waiting for Ji Yunan to buy better replacements. But before that, I have to make a trip to the Samsara Club. Ji Yunan did not forget that he had accepted the job of fighting coach, so he could buy enough star iron and get in touch with the Astral Gate. There were many strong people in the astral world, and Ji Yunan did not have the capital to do whatever he wanted, so he had to abide by the rules here. Just as Ji Yunan was planning to go to the immortal and demon world, outside the Blue Dragon Hall headquarters, which was Yang Xiaoxiao's manor, 2 people secretly arrived. Master, this is the new headquarters of the Blue Dragon Hall. A strong young man stood beside a white-haired middle-aged man and bowed. Changing 5 headquarters in 3 days, this Blue Dragon Hall's hall master is a cautious person, the white-haired man said softly with an interested smile. He then turned to the young man and said, "The murderer who killed your martial uncle Han might be inside. Don't you want to avenge him?" The young man Du Mion's face instantly became ferocious, but he quickly calmed down and said, "I am no match for that person, so I need to ask Master to help me. Otherwise, I might never catch up to him." Ha 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 ha. The white-haired man laughed heartily and patted Du Mion's shoulder. Not bad. Knowing when to yield, this is the way to achieve great things, the white-haired man said meaningfully. If you don't admit defeat, you will always lose. I am very happy that you can learn to retreat. Du Mion heard this and was silent for a long time. Finally, he let out a long sigh and said, "Master, please kill this person. There is no hurry." The white-haired man waved his hand lightly and said, "The son of a rich family should not sit under the eaves. The person has not appeared yet, so why should we expose ourselves?" Chapter 38. When Ji Yunan arrived at the Samsara Club, he unexpectedly met an acquaintance. "Ji Yunan, you're here." Wang Lishi looked at him in surprise. "Miss Shu hasn't arrived yet. Many people in the club want to get to know you. Do you want to do me the honor?" "Sure." Ji Yunan didn't mind. He was just unscrupulous sometimes. It wasn't like he was autistic. Why couldn't he get to know some people? After all, there weren't many students today. The public training room was a bit deserted. However, Ji Yunan's arrival made it lively. "Coach Ji Yu. Coach Ji Yu, I've wanted to get to know you for a long time. Thank you so much, Coach Ji Yu. You're practically our savior." A circle of well-built combat instructors surrounded Ji Yunan and took turns to shake hands with him. Each and every one of them looked so grateful that they were on the verge of tears. Ji Yunan couldn't help but be speechless. It seemed that Xu Feiyan had indeed tormented them quite a bit. After thanking him, most of the coaches went to do their own things. A few stayed behind to ask Ji Yunan for advice. They were also very humble. After all, he was someone who had subdued Xu Feiyan. Who dared to be presumptuous? Ji Yunan also gave them some pointers. With his level and knowledge, even if he didn't have any strength, it was enough to guide these coaches. Of course, no one present could tell that Ji Yunan had already advanced to the transcendent level. Otherwise, no one would dare to mention the word guidance. Miss Shu is here. Someone shouted. Ji Yunan turned around and saw that Xu Feiyan had indeed arrived. Xu Feiyan was still in the loose sportswear. Together with her cold and delicate face, she really did have the charm of an iceberg beauty. Coach Ji Yu. Ji Yunan nodded lightly. Have you prepared everything I want? Before Xu Feiyan could speak, the young man who came with her said, the weights, equipment you want are all here. However, I warn you, if you speak carelessly, you will taste the consequences. Xu Feiyan glanced at the young man speechlessly. The young man was her brother, Xu Zun. When he heard about her encounter yesterday, he determined that the other party was a swindler and insisted on coming over to take a look. And that was exactly what Xu Zun thought. In his opinion, this Ji Yunan had obviously heard a rumor from somewhere and knew that his sister had an unmentionable illness. That was why he was looking for an opportunity to swindle others. He might even have the thought of a toad lusting after swan meat. Xu Zun's words were meant to provoke him. As long as the other party angrily asked, "Who are you?" or something along those lines, he could reveal his identity and teach the brat a lesson. Furthermore, the brat couldn't talk back. Unfortunately, even though he had a good idea, Ji Yunan didn't even look at him and only spoke indifferently. Okay, come with me. You know fist techniques, right? Show me a set of punches first. Ji Yunan came to the training room. He didn't start the treatment immediately. Instead, this was the first thing he said. Okay. Xu Feiyan nodded lightly. You. Xu Zun wanted to say something, but was glared at by Xu Feiyan. He could only sit to the side and sulk. Xu Feiyan obediently demonstrated a set of punches. During this process, Ji Yunan's eyes were always wandering between her legs, judging the incongruity between them. This scene fell into Xu Zun's eyes, and he was even more certain that Ji Yunan must have bad intentions. If he could see the problem with his eyes, why would he need so much equipment? Okay, stop. Ji Yunan opened his mouth and handed over a leg ring. Hang it on your left leg, 3 centimeters below the knee. Do it again. Xu Feiyan did as she was told, but just as she was about to finish, she heard Ji Yunan say again, too low. She had to lift it up a little more. Too high. Go down a little more. Too high. Okay, that's it. Xu Feiyan's expression was a little strange. On the other side, Xu Zun couldn't bear it anymore. He angrily took a tape measure and ran over, saying, "Do you think your eyes are a ruler? You said 3 centimeters. His words were stuck in the middle of his sentence, because when he measured with the tape measure, the position of the leg ring was exactly 3 centimeters away from the knee. Ji Yunan continued to be expressionless. Precise control of the distance was a necessary quality for a professional player. Okay, brother, you just watch from the side. Xu Feiyan was still full of confidence in Ji Yunan. She pressed Xu Zun to the side and said. Xu Zun rolled his eyes. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Xu Feiyan didn't bicker with him and continued to practice as usual. After watching for a while, Ji Yunan asked her to change the leg ring. Change this leg ring, still in the old position. Hang this one too, lower by 0.5 centimeter. Change the one that's lower. After adjusting for nearly an hour, Xu Feiyan began to pant slightly. She had 3 leg rings on her left leg and 1 on her right leg. At this time, Ji Yunan was finally satisfied and said, okay. Fix these 4 leg rings and practice that set of boxing 5 times a day. You can take them off in a week. Xu Zun, who was watching from the side, yawned. Seeing Ji Yunan suddenly stop, he couldn't help but blurt out, that's it. Ji Yunan ignored him. After saying goodbye to Xu Feiyan, he walked straight to the door. Wait a minute, Coach Ji Yu. Xu Feiyan saw him turn around and was about to leave, so she hurriedly stopped him. What's the matter? After my leg problem is solved, will you continue to be my personal coach? Ji Yunan thought for a moment. The source of star gold still needed to be solved, so he nodded and said, yes, but I won't come often. At least for the next week or so, I won't be free. Sister, do you really believe that guy's words? Xu Zun watched his sister carefully lift up her trouser leg and install the leg ring on her leg. He suddenly became angry. That Ji Yunan's actions, in his eyes, were completely deceiving. He inexplicably let his sister practice boxing for an hour and wear a few leg rings, and that was it. If it was so simple, his father would have cured his sister long ago. Xu Feiyan didn't refute, but calmly said, in any case, whether it's true or not, won't we know in a week? Immortal Demon World, in the manor of Blue Dragon Hall headquarters, there was already a battle cry. Countless strong enemies were looking around, and even Bai Luoluo was forced to fight a bloody battle. Fortunately, after this period of time of training by Yang Xiaoxiao, she was no longer the rookie she used to be. She didn't hesitate to kill people, and with a swing of her sword, a life was taken. Little Bai, let's go. Yang Xiaoxiao slashed an enemy with her sword and brought Bai Luoluo to the front of a secret passage. Quickly go, I'll be right there. Little miss, you also come with us. Bai Luoluo saw that Yang Xiaoxiao still wanted to turn back, and couldn't help but say. Yang Xiaoxiao ignored her, clenched her teeth, and walked to the side of the secret passage. With a light push of her hand, a hidden dark room actually appeared on the wall. Bai Luoluo was startled. This is Little Miss's room, how could there be a hidden dark room? What is Little Miss hiding inside? With the weak light, she seemed to be able to see clearly that there was a coffin inside. Teacher, I'll take you away. Yang Xiaoxiao held up the coffin with both hands, clenched her teeth and said. Inside, is Little Miss's teacher? Had he already passed away? Chapter 39. Ji Nan watched as the Demon King's figure gradually disappeared, but he did not chase after him. The Demon King's actual realm was still above his, but he had completely seen through his methods. But if Ji Nan wanted to make him stay, it would be more difficult. In any case, Ming Lu's people would take the lead in the future, so why would he need to fight the Demon King to the death now? In the future, waiting to be killed was the most important thing. Once the Demon King retreated, the remaining small fries of the Demon Dao could not do much. In a short while, they were all slaughtered by Ji Nan. Yang Xiaoxiao began to arrange for people to clean up the manor and rearrange the clothes that had been destroyed. Teacher, was that the Demon King? Yang Xiaoxiao came to Ji Nan's side and asked with some difficulty. Ji Nan and the Demonic King didn't hide anything when they fought. Moreover, the Demonic King's eye-catching appearance was easily recognized by others. Not bad. Yang Xiaoxiao took a deep breath and cupped her hands. Congratulations, teacher, for entering the Minute Subtlety realm as soon as you entered the Transcendent realm. The so-called Minute Subtlety referred to the 3 realms of the Transcendent realm. From the Transcendent realm to the Breaking realm, there were 3 realms in between: Mixed Essence, Minute Subtlety, and Eternal Domain. According to Ji Nan's understanding, it was the difference between the first, second, and third levels of his core skills. He had the Shadow Earring, and his core skills were already at the second level, so he was not at a disadvantage against the Demon King, who was publicly acknowledged to be in the Minute Subtlety realm. That was why Yang Xiaoxiao thought so. Not really. Ji Nan shook his head. I have only understood the Minute Subtlety, but my own realm has not caught up yet. Yang Xiaoxiao almost rolled her eyes. The Minute Subtlety is even more terrifying when the Minute Subtlety surpasses the realm, but at this time, she suddenly fell silent. Ji Nan looked at her and said with a faint smile, What? Do you think there is hope for revenge? Yang Xiaoxiao still did not speak. Her usual sweet smile gradually disappeared, and what replaced it was the 7 slaughter demonists who had slaughtered everywhere. Ji Nan had a thorough understanding of Yang Xiaoxiao. This girl was a natural killer. The revenge of her family's annihilation made her grow up quickly, but it also made her walk the path of extreme and bigotry. Although she had temporarily let go of her hatred under his persuasion, it did not mean that she had forgotten about it. She had put away the sword that she had used all those years ago. Even in that life and death situation just now, she had not pulled out that sword, which meant that she was still restraining herself with all her might. She wanted to use this bone-deep hatred to nurture the sword in her heart. When the sword was unsheathed, it would be the day she achieved Dao. Go get your revenge, Ji Nan said lightly. Yang Xiaoxiao looked at him in a daze. She thought that her teacher would advise her to be patient until the heart sword was completely formed. She didn't expect, what's the point of practicing martial arts if you can't even take revenge? Ji Nan rubbed her head and smiled. Never forget what made you walk this path in the first place. As Ji Yunan spoke, Yang Xiaoxiao felt like she had returned to that estate, that scene of blood splattering everywhere, that shudder that came from the depths of her soul. The battle at Blue Dragon Hall's headquarters had been surrounded by so many eyes that it was impossible to conceal the result. The Demon Lord had privately gone to the central and southern regions in an attempt to capture the rising faction of Blue Dragon Hall in one fell swoop, but he had been wounded and retreated. This sort of news was beginning to spread throughout the world. As the rumors spread, some places were already saying that the Demon Lord was heavily wounded and on the verge of death, that exterminating the demonic path was just around the corner. In the center of the continent, in Ming Lu's headquarters in this world, absurd. That Demon Lord was already a subtle realm expert, one of the strongest of the natives. How could he have been so easily wounded? An old man covered in wrinkles slammed his hand on the table, not believing the rumors in the slightest. Including him, a total of 11 people with different expressions were sitting around a large round table, discussing this matter. But this matter is indeed true. The Demon Lord retreated. A woman in green standing across from the old man said leisurely, "According to our intelligence, the person who fought with the Demon Lord was at least a subtle realm expert." The old man's expression was dark. He knew that he could not refute the ironclad evidence in front of him, so he asked, "Then tell me, where did this expert come from? Could it be that this world has secrets that our Ming Lu has not discovered?" The old man's last sentence caused everyone's expressions to turn serious. Ming Lu had prepared for this plane for so long, it was not just to complete a mission. Once they had dealt with the enemy reincarnated, this place could become Ming Lu's resource plane, steadily transporting all sorts of resources and talents. If this world still had secrets, or even hidden factions, then that was something they truly needed to pay attention to. Everyone. Just as everyone was deep in thought, one of the women said, "I think I have a rough idea of who that person is." "What? Is that true? Tang Xian, did you obtain intelligence from other sources? Is it reliable?" A series of questions rang out. Tang Xian smiled bitterly. She gently pushed the information in her hands forward. "I don't know if you still remember, but there was a genius in our branch in the past." As she spoke, the information in her hands was distributed to everyone. When they finished reading Tang Xian's information, all the transcendents frowned. What Tang Xian showed them was the conflict between Ji Yunan and Yang Xiaoxiao. Back then, Ji Yunan had given Yang Xiaoxiao pointers. This was no secret in the eyes of those who were observant. Even the Demon Lord could find out, let alone Ming Lu. And Yang Xiaoxiao was the 7 slaughter demoness, as well as the Hall Master of Blue Dragon Hall. This was even more obvious. In that case, it should be this Ji Yunan who has advanced to transcendence. A young man with sword-like eyebrows shook his head with a bitter smile. Back then, I had high hopes for his advancement. I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. This young man was Yu Chunxing, who had been stationed in the south. He had seen Ji Yunan's shocking achievements back then and admired him very much. "It's a pity that he's not one of us anymore." Another person sighed softly. "Otherwise, our mission this time would be much easier." Everyone else sighed helplessly. Even among the people present, more than half of them were only at the first stage of transcendence, the chaotic prime. If a refinement realm expert suddenly appeared, their combat power would immediately increase by a large margin. Ming Lu was not allowed to stay or leave, so no one could say anything about Ji Yunan's departure. They could only sigh that he had left at the wrong time. Just as the meeting fell into silence, an elegant middle-aged man at the head of the table knocked on the table and spoke. "Even if Ji Yunan is no longer one of us, it's not impossible to pull him over." The middle-aged man's expression was calm as if nothing could move him. The fact that he fought with the Demon Lord proves a lot of things. Everyone's eyes lit up. They felt sorry for the loss of talent as they had not thought of this. Even if he was not a companion, he could still be a comrade. Chapter 40. Just as the higher-ups of Ming Lu decided to bring forward the final battle due to the battle between Ji Yunan and the Demon Monarch, a shadow quietly arrived in the south. "Sister Juchi, this is today's information." A short-haired and capable young man walked over and placed a stack of documents in front of Mo Juchi's table. Okay, I got it. Mo Juchi nodded and smiled at the young man. Thank you, Zhao Mu. The young man called Zhao Mu seemed a bit bashful. He revealed a shy expression and said hurriedly, Sister Juchi, you have to rest well too. Mo Juchi was startled. Recently, the battle between the righteous and evil paths had been in full swing. She had been extremely busy and hadn't had a good rest in a long time. Thus, she smiled again and patted Zhao Mu's arm. All right, after dealing with today's batch, I'll go have a good sleep. Seeing that his advice was effective, Zhao Mu nodded excitedly. A strange feeling gradually surfaced in his heart. Sister Juchi actually listened to my advice. It's useless for others to advise her. Just as Zhao Mu's heart was surging, his gaze on Mo Juchi gradually froze. This was because he saw a black shadow slowly creeping up the table leg. The black shadow seemed slow but was actually very fast. Before Zhao Mu could react, it had climbed up Mo Juchi's neck in the blink of an eye. Mo Juchi seemed to be completely unaware of this. Before Zhao Mu could finish saying be careful, he saw a scene that made him dumbfounded. The black shadow actually lightly made a circle around Mo Juchi's neck. Then, the latter's head fell off just like that. Sister Juchi. Zhao Mu was completely dumbfounded. He had never seen such a terrifying scene before. At this time, Ji Yunan's figure gradually appeared. He saw that there was someone standing beside him. You're also from Minglu? Only then did Zhao Mu react. He flew into a rage. You actually killed Sister Juchi. I'm going to avenge her. As he spoke, he had already pounced forward. Bang! Ji Yunan directly sent him flying with a palm strike. This palm landed on his face and completely deformed his face. Naturally, his life was in danger. Idiot! Don't you know that dying in the plane only means that the later can't enter? An hour later, the manor of the Minglu branch was engulfed in flames. Not a single person was left alive. All the materials, files, and documents were burned to ashes. Ji Yunan swept his clothes and left not a single trace. He wanted to kill Mo Juchi because he had used Mo Juchi to annihilate Yang Xiaoxiao's entire family. As long as Mo Juchi was still in this world, this matter could be used by the people of Minglu to sow discord between him and Yang Xiaoxiao. Killing Mo Juchi was equivalent to destroying the evidence. Even if Tang Xian knew about this, she had no evidence, so it was useless to rely on words alone. Yu Lan, Yu, Lu, Ji Yu Xian. Ji Yunan was not trying to get anything from Yang Xiaoxiao at the moment. At most, he needed someone to help him manage his forces. During the battle between the righteous and evil paths, Ji Yunan needed a pair of eyes to gather information for him and search for hunting targets. After the war, even if Yang Xiaoxiao found out the truth, it wouldn't affect Ji Yunan. While Ji Yunan was cleaning up Mo Juchi, the immortal and demon world finally welcomed a big change. The war, which had lasted for 9 months, was finally about to enter its final phase. The battle between the Transcendence and demon world was about to begin. On the 15th day of the 9th month, the Heavenly Fire sect's Daoist Yuli appeared. He used the Heavenly Fire to burn down the demon path's 70,000-strong army. On the 17th day of the 9th month, Daoist Yuli appeared. He was attacked by 3 Transcendents from the demon path and was seriously injured. On the 21st day of the 9th month, the demon path's experts were ambushed. They suffered heavy losses. On the 25th day of the 9th month, the Pure Land Bodhisattva of the Joyous Union sect fell. On the 29th day, once the Transcendent War began, both sides didn't hold back. Experts from both sides threw themselves into the battlefield. In a short month, nearly 10 Transcendents had fallen. This number was the total accumulated strength of both the righteous and demon paths over hundreds of years. And on the battlefield that ordinary people couldn't see, the number of Transcendents who died was even greater. Even those famous native experts had mostly died at their hands. In a dense forest in the northern part of the continent, a team was hurrying forward. They arrived in front of a hidden valley. Hall Master, ahead is the last stronghold of the Yinhua Tree Gate. Their holy son, holy daughter, and the last sect protector elder are all inside. A man in black bowed and reported. The person he was reporting to was a young girl dressed in bright yellow. Do it. The young girl's face was expressionless. This young girl was, of course, Yang Xiaoxiao. According to intelligence, the Yinhua tree gate was the one who had ambushed the Yang family and caused the massacre. Ever since the battle between Ji Yunan and the Demon Lord, Yang Xiaoxiao had embarked on the path of annihilating the Yinhua tree gate. She led the Blue Dragon Hall team and conquered thousands of li in a month, destroying more than 30 strongholds of the Yinhua tree gate. She had forcefully beaten such a medium-sized sect to the point where only a few kittens and puppies were left. Yang Xiaoxiao's growth was too fast. Half a year ago, she was just a little girl who knew some martial arts. When Ji Yunan came to rescue her, she was already able to contend with a 6th-level innate stage practitioner. But now, Yang Xiaoxiao no longer cared about innate stage practitioners. After all, she had followed a teacher who had crushed those of the same level since the innate stage, and dared to kill transcendence at the peak of the innate stage. Her horizons had long been raised. The 3 6th-level innate stage practitioners of the Yinhua tree gate had all been killed by her. All the direct relatives of the Yinhua tree gate's master had also been bled by her, drained dry corpses, and then beheaded as a sacrifice. And now, there was finally only one stronghold left. The Holy Son and Holy Daughter of the Yinhua tree gate were the last descendants of this sect. As long as they were killed, the Yinhua tree gate's roots would be severed, and it would be completely erased from the mainland. And with the endorsement of the battle between Ji Yunan and the Demon Lord, Yang Xiaoxiao would go out under the banner of Blue Dragon Hall. No transcendents would dare to casually interfere. The members of the Blue Dragon Hall quickly obeyed the order and left. Instead, Yang Xiaoxiao stood outside the stronghold, silent for a long time. "Little miss." Bai Luo looked at her with some confusion. "Little Bai, tell me, after I take my revenge, what else can I do?" Yang Xiaoxiao's voice sounded somewhat melancholic, and she even began to hesitate. Bai Luo tilted her head and thought for a moment. "Little miss, you can accept more people into our Blue Dragon Hall. We want to develop Blue Dragon Hall into the world's largest organization." As she said this, Bai Luo's eyes lit up. She even added in her heart, "When the time comes, let's see who dares to bully us." Yang Xiaoxiao laughed involuntarily and reached out to touch the back of the little lowly's head. "The world's strongest organization? I want to too, but..." Yang Xiaoxiao thought of the past again. She thought of Mo Jiachi, and also the day she brought her to see Ji Yunan. Chapter 41. Everything happened too quickly. Before Yu Chunxing and Tang Xian could react, Yi Jiyu had already fallen to the ground. What they didn't expect was that Ji Yunan had appeared out of nowhere and was stepping on Yi Jiyu's head. He had a faint smile on his face as he said condescendingly, "What would you do if I didn't listen to you?" "Ji Yunan, you..." Tang Xian looked at Ji Yunan, who had suddenly appeared, and was speechless for a moment. The current Ji Yunan was too different from her impression of him. Ever since Ji Yunan left, Tang Xian hadn't really met him. Therefore, the impression he gave her was that he was a junior who had some talent but wasn't very strong. The young man before her was wearing a white robe with gold inlaid on it. His black hair was scattered casually and his gaze was cold. He was like a sharp arrow that had been unsheathed. The sharpness made people not dare to look at him directly. Is this the real him? Tang Xian suddenly thought of Ji Yunan's calm expression when she brought him to test his aptitude. Putting aside Tang Xian's complicated emotions, Yi Jiyu finally came back to her senses. She was instantly enraged. "Ji Yunan, you're courting death." An intense flame wave rose up and Yi Jiyu's body started to emit red light. This red light had a terrifying temperature and even the air was distorted from the heat. This was Yi Jiyu's innate mystical ability, flame ripples. If she was given enough time, she would be able to release extremely high-temperature flame rays. Every single one of them would be fatal and impossible to defend against. It was an extremely powerful mystical ability. Child's play. Ji Yunan chuckled and the shadow on the ground quickly covered Yi Jiyu. Countless black threads shot out and each of them collided with the ripple. Therefore, the flame ripple was extinguished at a speed visible to the naked eye until Yi Jiyu's entire body was black. There was no longer any red light. It's really the nuance realm, and this is the shadow divine ability. As the only nuance realm extraordinary powerhouse among the three, Yu Chunxing could see through Ji Yunan's abilities at a glance. He was indescribably shocked. Nuance referred to a cultivator having perfect control over their divine ability. The power could be big or small and they could control it freely. It was just like how when Zhongfeng had been able to use air explosions to blast people and also use air pressure to lift himself up. Ji Yunan's perfect countermeasure was an extremely difficult technique even in the minute subtlety realm. Yi Jiyu, who was stepped on by Ji Yunan, was similarly shocked to the point of being dumbstruck at this moment. She'd never imagined that her divine ability would be destroyed in such a way. Her flame ripples had always been famous for their high attack power. It would have been fine if it had been dodged, but her opponent had used his own divine ability to forcefully suppress her. This feeling of powerlessness made Yi Jiyu feel suffocated. Ji Yunan didn't kill Yi Jiyu in the end. Under the persuasion of Yu Chunxing and Tang Xian, he let Yi Jiyu go. Yi Jiyu did not have the face to stay any longer. She turned around and left without saying a word. It's fine. I'll inform her to take action later. Yu Chunxing wasn't worried about this. Instead, he looked at Ji Yunan and said, I still have to thank Brother Ji Yu for showing mercy. Ji Yunan waved his hand with a friendly expression. I've never liked to kill people. Yu Chunxing and Tang Xian's mouths twitched. They knew about Ji Yunan's past achievements. Ji Yunan didn't feel anything about this. He had always felt that he was a normal person. He only killed people to get rewards. Why would he kill people if there were no benefits? For example, if Tang Xian hadn't said that the monk had joined the demon Dao, he wouldn't have come to kill that monk. According to the organization's intelligence, Monk Jingnan is a very famous solo reincarnator. He lives in the 6-star sector and rarely interferes with the missions of large organizations. I don't know what Samotion used to move him this time. After being here for a few years, Ming Lu had obviously found out about the reincarnator organization on the other side. Samotion was a reincarnator organization that had only flourished in the past few decades. They were mainly active in the 6-star sector. It wasn't strange for them to be able to contact Monk Jingnan. What level is Jingnan at? Ji Yunan asked this crucial question. He's at least at the nuance realm. Some people say that he has already formed his domain core. It's only a matter of time before he reaches the eternal domain realm, Yu Chunxing said in a deep voice. Ji Yunan couldn't help but roll his eyes. Just the 4 of us are going to kill such an opponent. All right. Go home, wash up, and sleep. Of course it's not that simple. Listen to us first, Tang Xian interrupted. We dared to attack Jingnan because he's already seriously injured. After listening to Yu Chunxing's explanation, Ji Yunan finally understood where their confidence came from. Jingnan had nothing to do with this world mission and had no intention of helping Samotion. Their relationship was more like cooperation. Samotion provided information, while Jingnan came for another mission. The seriously injured Jingnan's realm was at most the same, but his strength was almost at the primordial chaos realm. This way, it was indeed not impossible for them to keep the other party here with their lineup of 2 nuance realm cultivators and 2 primordial chaos realm cultivators. Ji Yunan somewhat understood what the 2 of them meant and said, Is his mission related to the saint and saintess? To be precise, it's related to a treasure of the demon Dao. Thank you for saving me, Master. The Yinhua tree sect's saint's surname was Zhong. He and his sister were the last bloodline of the Yinhua tree sect. Jingnan had brought him out of the dense forest and fled all the way back to Luoyang City. Only then did he feel like he had a new lease on life. Amitabha. Buddha saves the world, so how can this penniless monk leave you in the lurch? Jingnan pressed his palms together, his face still expressionless. The saint was still expressing his gratitude. The saintess beside him, who had not spoken all this while, suddenly said, May I know why Master is here? Jingnan's gaze landed on the saintess and revealed a hint of approval. May I ask for your name, young benefactor? I'm Zhong Yaro. This is my elder brother, Zhong Tianxu. Saintess Zhong Yaro looked calmer than her elder brother. Her tone and expression did not show any signs of impatience. One could not tell that she had just experienced a life-and-death escape. Jing Nan nodded slightly. This penniless monk is here for an item called the 9 Shen Fiend Disc. Fiend Disc. Zhong Tianshu's expression brightened as he hurriedly said, Master, I know this treasure. Its last master was a senior of the Yinhua tree sect. Oh. Benefactor, do you know where the Fiend Disc is? Jing Nan revealed a smile. I know. Ah, but that's a treasure of the demon Dao. Zhong Tianshu was about to speak when he reacted midway. Why was this Buddhist master looking for a treasure of the demon Dao? The Fiend Disc is in Luoyang City. It was snatched by the Jin Nation's royal family many years ago, but they have no way of opening it. It must still be in the royal family's secret vault. Without waiting for Zhong Tianshu to speak, Saintess Zhong Yuan revealed the location of the Fiend Disc without any hesitation. Zhong Tianshu turned his head and looked at his sister in shock. A hint of helplessness flashed in his eyes. In his opinion, since this master had a request for the Fiend Disc, the two of them could use it as a price to ask this master to help them kill the 7 slaughter demonists. Chapter 42. The Observer's Eyepiece was a piece of equipment that had helped Ji Yunan a lot, but it had never been of any decisive use. On Ji Yunan's journey, most of his opponents were too weak. There was no need for him to deliberately seek out their weaknesses to kill them. As a result, the Observer's Eyepiece didn't play its intended role. In fact, as the first piece of equipment that Ji Yunan had purchased, the Observer's Eyepiece had a very high status in the game. It was considered one of the necessary equipment for beginners. The current situation confirmed Ji Yunan's foresight. If not for the Observer's Eyepiece, he really wouldn't have been able to find a good way to defeat his opponent in a short period of time. After putting on the eyepiece, the constant insight spell immediately took effect. Jing Nan's seemingly flawless tortoise shell finally revealed some differences. This feeling was as though he was using some kind of ray to scan, allowing him to instantly find some weak points. Here. The corners of Ji Yunan's mouth curled into a smile. He instantly leaned forward and punched Jing Nan's left shoulder. Jing Nan, who had his eyes closed the entire time, finally opened his eyes. He turned his body slightly and formed a palm with his left hand to meet Ji Yunan's attack. However, Ji Yunan's reaction was extremely fast. Almost as soon as Jing Nan moved, he turned his body and moved up like a swimming dragon. His target changed to the top of Jing Nan's head. Jing Nan's expression turned solemn. His right hand was still controlling the demonic compass, so he had no choice but to raise his left hand to meet his opponent. Ji Yunan's punch landed and was firmly blocked by monk Jing Nan's palm. However, the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. When Jing Nan saw this smile, his heart skipped a beat. At some point in time, a humanoid shadow had appeared beside him. It had perfectly replicated Ji Yunan's previous punch. Target left shoulder. There was no way to dodge. After the punch landed, the sound of something shattering sounded. Jing Nan took 3 steps back, and the golden light around him dimmed significantly. Ji Yunan stood where he was as though he was taking a breather. As for the shadow body avatar, it transformed into a shadow and stood behind him. Shadow divine power. There's actually a doppelganger superpower. Seeing this, Yu Chunxing could not help but sigh softly, as expected of a divine ability that uses the law of light as one of the 2 sides. Monk Jing Nan's expression was solemn, and a hint of bitterness appeared on his face. He twirled the prayer beads in his left hand and said, Amitabha. To all your ass. Die. In a flash, Ji Yunan turned into a shadow that was hard to see with the naked eye. He quickly moved around Jing Nan, throwing dozens of punches every second. He displayed his speed to the extreme, occasionally mixing in a couple of real moves among the countless feints. Coupled with the shadow body doppelganger, Jing Nan was suffering unspeakably. Tang Xian, Yi Jiyu, and Yu Chunxing had long stopped fighting because Jing Nan seemed to be surrounded by 2 black shadows. They were unable to interfere in such a battle. Yi Jiyu suddenly had a feeling that she couldn't speak. Even though she knew that Ji Yunan was strong, maybe even stronger than her, but this, the Transcendence Realm, was a huge stage. Even in the same realm, the difference in strength could be like heaven and earth. For an expert like Jing Nan, who stood at the peak of minute subtlety, had divine powers surrounding him, and could attain a domain at any time, he was actually beaten to the point of being unable to retaliate. What they did not know was that Jing Nan's situation was worse than they had imagined. Ji Yunan's body was too strong and his speed was too fast. Once he found a weakness, he would unleash a flurry of attacks. As for Jing Nan, he had to deal with such attacks while controlling the fiend board. How could he defend flawlessly? In just a few seconds, Jing Nan's turtle shell shattered with a loud bang. He hurriedly pushed back Ji Yunan and the shadow body with a palm strike and jumped out of the encirclement. "Benefactor, please listen to this penniless monk, die." Ji Yunan pounced forward again. "Benefactor, die." Ji Yunan and the shadow body were like two mad dogs. They relied on their thick skin and thick flesh to beat Jing Nan's head, not giving him a chance to speak. The corners of Jing Nan's mouth twitched. Without the protective golden light, how could he block Ji Yunan? He struggled left and right for a long time. In the end, his face was punched several times. Half of his face, which was originally delicate and pretty, suddenly swelled up. If he wanted to suppress the fiend board, Jing Nan would not be able to move quickly. Therefore, facing such a situation, he could only sigh softly and throw the fiend board out. Yu Chunxing rose and landed, grabbing the fiend board in his hand. At the same time, he sighed. "You're quite decisive. If you don't stop, you might really die." Ji Yunan, come back." Yu Chunxing, who was grabbing the 9 black fiend board, nearly widened his eyes. Ji Yunan did not even look over. The shadow body circled behind him and formed an encirclement again. Jing Nan, who had just heaved a sigh of relief, was beaten up again. "Benefactor, don't go too far." Monk Jing Nan was really infuriated, but Ji Yunan didn't care. He didn't care what Monk Jing Nan said. He only cared about hitting himself. This was a habit that Ji Yunan had developed in the online game era. Instance dungeon bosses would always spout nonsense. They had their own shields and would not be affected. This was a necessary quality for an expert player. Jing Nan's face was a little dark. Even Yu Chunxing and the other two were the same. In their opinion, since they had the fiend board in their hands, why should they fight Monk Jing Nan? It would not be worth it to push this expert to the other side for no reason. Of course, they did not know that in Ji Yunan's eyes, the big baldy, Jing Nan, had long become a pile of sin points and points. Bang! Another punch landed on Jing Nan's nose, and 2 lines of blood appeared on his face. The monk finally could not hold on any longer and began to turn around to escape. However, with Ji Yunan's speed, how could he escape? He took the initiative to open up a distance, giving Ji Yunan a chance to kite him. The shadow bodies fought while the main body harassed from behind with a crossbow. Jing Nan suddenly felt that this was even more hopeless than being surrounded. 6 hours later, the pitiful monk Jing Nan was finally tortured to death. He did not manage to leave Luoyang City even when he died. Ji Yunan accepted the 3 sin points and 150 points in satisfaction. It seemed that the stronger the boss was, the more points it gave. "Where's the fiend board?" Ji Yunan returned to the 3 of them and asked bluntly. Yu Chunxing quickly handed the fiend board to him, and Ji Yunan accepted it. "Wait." Seeing that Yu Chunxing had handed over the fiend board just like that, Yi Jiu hurriedly stopped him. "There's only one spoil of war. Why should you take it for yourself?" Yu Chunxing could not help but roll his eyes. He thought to himself, what's the use of this thing? We might as well give it to this guy. However, before he could speak, Yi Jiu said, "No one who cooperates with Ming Lu can take all the spoils of war for themselves." This time, she had learned her lesson and used the entire Ming Lu as her backing. In her opinion, no matter how powerful Ji Yunan was, he would not dare to go against Ming Lu. However, smack! Ji Yunan casually slapped her and sent her flying. Then, he spat in disdain. Chapter 43. After the Battle of Luoyang City, Ji Yunan's life returned to peace. He stayed in the manor every day. There were people serving him when he went in and out, and there were also people delivering information about extraordinaires. All he needed to do was go out and harvest sin points. But just as he was enjoying his comfortable life, the immortal demon world was in turmoil. Ming Lu's years of preparation had finally paid off. The moment they launched their attack, It was as fast as lightning. With Ji Yunan's interference, the elites of the 6 evil paths fell one after another. Very few of them were able to fight back. In terms of foundation, professionalism, and control over the natives, the Samoyed sect couldn't compare to Minglu in any aspect. Their defeat was already set in stone. As time passed, the righteous sects won one battle after another. Although some transcendents died, it didn't affect the overall situation. Another month passed, more than half of the evil path sects were wiped out. Sects of all sizes suffered countless casualties. Even the leading 6 sects were scattered. In the propaganda of the righteous sects, the evil path sects were like stray dogs, fleeing in panic, waiting for the righteous cultivators to surround and kill them. "Teacher, there's a letter for you." Ji Yunan sat alone at the side, sipping his tea and reading the frontline battle report. Yang Xiaoxiao suddenly rushed in and said, "Oh." Ji Yunan raised his eyebrows slightly, showing some curiosity on his face. Minglu hadn't sent him a letter for a long time. It seemed that the unceremonious scolding of Yi Jiyu still had some effect. Of course, this was also because of the situation. Ever since the battle at Jingnan, Ji Yunan's reputation had spread to both sides. It wasn't easy to secretly attack him anymore. On the other hand, when transcendents started to flee, it wasn't easy to catch them. Even if they could catch up, they wouldn't be able to wait for Ji Yunan. So Ji Yunan didn't force it. He waited for the main mission to be completed and received a considerable reward. At this critical moment, Minglu sent him a letter. What was it about? When Ji Yunan opened the letter and read it, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. His laughter made Yang Xiaoxiao, who was beside him, curious. Ji Yunan noticed her expression and handed the letter over to her. "Take a look." Without the slightest hesitation, Yang Xiaoxiao quickly read through the contents, then exclaimed, "The demon lord has already been captured alive. Are they going to hold a ceremony?" The content of the letter, however, informed Ji Yunan that the demon monarch had been captured, and the people of the righteous faction wanted to behead the demon monarch in the righteous faction's ceremony 3 days later as a sacrifice to the ancestors. At the end of the letter, he invited Ji Yunan to go with him. "Teacher, are you going?" "Of course. I'm not going." Ji Yunan shook his head firmly. Yang Xiaoxiao didn't quite understand Ji Yunan's thoughts. Now that the world was settled, the righteous path was in power. With Master's strength, he naturally did not fear anyone. But participating in the righteous path's grand ceremony was also a way to establish his own position. As long as Master went, he would definitely obtain the corresponding position and become famous overnight. As expected of Master, he was not even tempted by such fame and fortune. Ji Yunan wasn't as complicated as she thought. He patted her shoulder and said, "The Holy Son and Holy Maiden of Yinhua Tree Gate, have you found them?" "No." Yang Xiaoxiao shook her head calmly. "The war was too chaotic, we couldn't find any traces of them. Perhaps they have already died in the chaos." Speaking of this, Yang Xiaoxiao suddenly smiled. "Actually, teacher, I no longer care about the family feud from back then. It's best if you can think that way." Ji Yunan nodded. "This world is very big. Strive to advance to the transcendence level as soon as possible." "Oh right, do you want to know why I didn't go?" Yang Xiaoxiao couldn't quite accept his jumping train of thought. After being stunned for a while, she hurriedly shook her head. "They invited me to kill people, but I won't kill people without any benefits." "Kill people? The outcome has been decided. Who else do you want to kill?" Yang Xiaoxiao suddenly thought of something. She even felt that the remnants of the evil path still existed and would make a comeback. "Of course we're going to kill those of the righteous path," Ji Yunan said matter-of-factly. "You don't think that we, the immortal diviners, are really just here to help, do you?" 3 days later, the righteous path's grand ceremony. Countless heroes of the righteous path gathered. After a long sacrificial ceremony, the heaven-seeking sect's leader personally cut off the head of the demonic king Wang Yutong, announcing the official end of the year-long battle between the righteous and evil paths. The disciples and followers of the various sects celebrated and cheered that the era of the righteous path was coming. However, extreme joy turned to sorrow. Countless unknown killers suddenly appeared and massacred the upper echelons of the righteous path. This battle only lasted for a few hours, but all the upper echelons of the 5 sects were killed. From then on, the righteous path declined, and they were no better than the evil path, which had become the target of scorn. No one knew where these killers came from. The few people who knew about the existence of the immortal diviners also unknowingly decreased until they completely disappeared. In the manor of the Blue Dragon Hall headquarters, Ji Yunan sat in the guest room. Opposite him was a rare guest. "I thought that you would be busy hunting down the righteous path's experts and wouldn't have the time to come here," Ji Yunan said with a relaxed expression as he looked at the person in front of him with a faint smile. This was the first time that Tang Xian had come to Ji Yunan's lair. If she could, she really didn't want to come here. The people of the Samoyed Heaven have all retreated. It's only a matter of time before they hunt down the natives. Tang Xian's expression was calm. "For us, your attitude is the most important thing." "Me? I don't have any attitude," Ji Yunan said innocently. "Whether you want resources or talents, it's none of my business. I'm just raising a disciple here and have the time to come here for a vacation." Tang Xian looked at him deeply and said in a low voice, "I hope you can remember what you said today. About Mo Jiachi." "I haven't seen Mo Jiachi in a long time," Ji Yunan interrupted and spread his hands. Tang Xian gritted her teeth, feeling a little annoyed. Ji Yunan was too cunning. Every step he took was right on the line. It made people feel annoyed if they didn't flare up, but if they did, they would feel that the gains weren't worth the losses. Whether it was killing Mo Jiachi or injuring Yi Jiu, they were all within the scope of the mission. The organization didn't suffer any substantial losses. Under such circumstances, the organization wouldn't put in the effort to kill a transcendent expert like him. She didn't know that digging out the benefits from the mission was something that players were best at. Since Ji Yunan didn't want to admit it, Tang Xian didn't say anything else and immediately stood up to leave. But before she left, she suddenly smiled. "Right, when we were killing the righteous path's experts, someone said that he knew you, so I brought him along. Treat it as a farewell gift." "Huh?" Ji Yunan was stunned. After thinking for a long time, he really couldn't remember who he knew from the righteous path. And even if he knew him, why would Tang Xian be so kind as to specially bring him over? The next moment, Ji Yunan couldn't help but laugh. A carriage slowly drove over. The curtain was lifted, revealing the figure of a woman. This woman's body was glowing with white light. Very few people could get close to her. But her expression was abnormally pale. It was obvious that it wasn't easy to support this white light. She was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Chapter 44. In the dark of the night, a long sword pierced through the man's abdomen. "Why? Why did you betray me?" Bai Luoluo's voice trembled, just like the hand holding the sword. "What right do you have to fight for the position of minister of the 6 ministries?" The woman sneered and asked. She covered the wound on her abdomen, and her eyes revealed a look of resentment. "Is it because you're the close friend of Hall Master? You're overestimating yourself." Bai Luoluo's mind exploded, and she couldn't hear anything. Ever since she left the Blue Dragon Hall headquarters and came here to be an ordinary assassin, she had never relied on any external force to reach her current position. She even thought that no one would know about her relationship with Little Miss. She didn't expect that the person in front of her, who she regarded as her best friend, would see through her. As if reading Bai Luoluo's mind, the man sneered again. "Do you really think that we met by chance? Wasn't it? Don't be silly. How many of the higher-ups here don't know about your relationship with Hall Master? Deputy Minister Hua sent me to get close to you to keep an eye on you." The man's voice was like a sharp arrow, piercing through Bai Luoluo's body. Bai Luoluo lowered her head, and tears seemed to come out of her eyes, but she held them back. She didn't know how long it had been since she was this sad. Ever since she died in her previous life and inexplicably crossed into this world, she told herself to be strong. She worked hard to learn martial arts, and was even willing to be a cold-blooded assassin, just to protect herself. But in the world of assassins, was there no trace of warmth? She looked up at the man in front of her. He was her only friend and companion in her career as an assassin, and even her emotional sustenance. But now, there was only coldness in his eyes. Gradually, Bai Luoluo's gaze began to become firm. Another sword flashed, and an arrow of blood suddenly came out of the man's neck. In this world, if you don't kill others, others will kill you. Bai Luoluo looked at the vast night sky and muttered to herself, "Big senior sister, maybe you're right, evil event, Bai Luoluo's blackening has been completed." Total sin points, 4. Ji Yunan was sitting at home, and his sin points were falling from the sky. "Do you have 4 o'clock? Not bad." Ji Yunan nodded in satisfaction. Although this was a long-term event with a high difficulty, his participation rate was too low. It was good enough to get a reward of 4 points. The dungeon main quest has been completed. Main quest evaluation, C+, side quest development, B, map exploration, C, crime, B, overall evaluation, C+. Accumulated points, 1,000 points. Accumulated sin points, 30 points. What Ji Yunan didn't expect was that the reward for the main mission of the immortal and demon world would also be sent to him at this time. Moreover, the value was very surprising. A total of 30 sin points, 1,000 point. Although Ji Yunan already knew that the rewards for completing this huge main quest of the immortal and demon world would definitely not be small, so many rewards still made Ji Yunan somewhat happy. Now he was sitting on 1,500 points, and his sin points had reached an astonishing 97 points. He was only 3 points away from opening the first skill bar. Sure enough, this kind of large-scale dungeon is the main source of sin points. Ji Yunan thought about how he had worked himself to death for so long, and this time, he was only halfway through the mission. His heart suddenly felt unbalanced. Fortunately, it was all his own. For the first time, he even felt that joining some large-scale reincarnation organization also had certain benefits, such as being able to participate in this kind of large-scale mission. On a sunny morning, Ji Yunan was already standing on the street of Star World's Red Carp. Looking at the scene of spiritual cars coming and going in front of him, it was as if he had returned to his previous life. Ji Yunan couldn't help but sigh. It's still more suitable to live in a technological civilization for retirement. Although the power of the immortal and demon world was attractive, there were still various inconveniences. While thinking, Ji Yunan had already walked all the way to the entrance of care for one's family. Bai Luoluo's body was still preserved in care for one's family. Since the mission was completed, he could also notify care for one's family to wake her up. "Please stop." A guard walked in front of Ji Yunan, his expression cold. "Sir, this is care for one's family. May I ask who you are looking for?" "Jiyu Xingzhu." The guard looked at Ji Yunan suspiciously, but finally nodded and said, "Please wait a moment, sir." The gazes of the people around him were also a little strange. Ji Yunan's clothes were very ordinary, and there were no internal energy fluctuations around him. No matter how they looked at him, he didn't look like someone who could know Jiyu Xingzhu. The guard turned around and went inside to report. Next to him, a young girl who had entered the door at the same time as Ji Yunan revealed a curious expression. "Hey, what's your name? How do you know Xingzhu?" Ji Yunan turned his head slowly and saw that the young girl was wearing a white dress, which showed the unique characteristics of young girls. There was also a young man in a well-ironed suit standing next to her. When the young man heard Jiyu Xingzhu's name, he clearly shifted his gaze toward Ji Yunan. "I don't know her. I'm just asking her to lead the way." Ji Yunan shook his head lightly in his heart. He didn't want to get into trouble, so he replied casually. Hearing this answer, the young man withdrew his gaze and no longer paid attention to Ji Yunan. "Oh." The young girl also noticed this, and she was a little disappointed. Then, she rolled her eyes and giggled. "I heard that someone has been finding strange excuses to get close to Xingzhu recently. Don't tell me it's you." Ji Yunan glanced at her. He was too lazy to speak anymore, so he simply kept his mouth shut. However, to those who were observant, the result would be the same regardless of how Ji Yunan reacted. "If you don't say anything, I'll take it as a yes." The young girl chuckled and patted the young man's shoulder. "Brother, this person is trying to steal sister-in-law Xingzhu from you. Don't you have any reaction?" The young man shook his head helplessly. Of course, He knew that this was his sister's spoiled temperament acting up again. If she didn't make fun of this person, it would be difficult for him to leave. The young girl didn't wait for him to speak. She directly ran to Ji Yunan's side and raised her head. "Hey, I'm asking you a question. Do you know who we are?" She pointed at the young man. "See, young master Shi Tianjing of the Eastern City Shi family. Are you afraid?" As soon as he said that, even the guards around him couldn't help but laugh. They felt that the young girl was obviously teasing Ji Yunan, but Ji Yunan had no choice but to accept it. This person looked like a country bumpkin coming to the city. It was his honor to be teased by the Shi family's young lady. Ji Yunan continued to ignore the young girl's words. He didn't even turn his head. The guard who went to report earlier returned. He seemed to be in a hurry, and his attitude was even more respectful. "Miss Xingzhu invites you in." "Okay." Ji Yunan nodded. After being ignored several times, Miss Xia was really annoyed. She stopped Ji Yunan and said, "Hey, wait. You still want to go in after ignoring me? Let me tell you, Xingzhu and I grew up together. I don't care why you're looking for her, Bang! A strange sound rang out. It was Ji Yunan who lifted his leg and kicked Miss Xia's abdomen. The kick sent her flying far away, and she fell on her butt. Chapter 45. There was a sudden silence in front of the door of care for one's family, and then Shi Tianjing was furious. He raised his hand and punched Ji Yunan. "Bastard! How dare you!" Ji Yunan didn't even turn his head. His silhouette swayed, and Shi Tianjing felt a huge force coming towards him, and his whole body was flung away. The world in Shi Tianjing's eyes was spinning. When he came back to his senses, Ji Yunan's figure had disappeared and he was surrounded by a group of people. "Young Master Shi, are you okay?" Several guards of care for one's family looked at him with concern. There was also a person who looked like a doctor next to him. Shi Tianjing suddenly stood up. He felt that he was not injured, but then he felt depressed and embarrassed. He was a warrior of innate level 5, but he was knocked down by someone who knew his identity and dared to attack him without any scruples. Shi Tianjing's eyes were a bit hazy, and he made up his mind to teach him a lesson. "By the way, where is my sister? Miss Xia saw that you haven't woken up for a long time, so she said that she went to find Brother Long." "Long Quan?" Shi Tianjing's eyes were slightly cold. If he wanted to teach that country boy a lesson, he was afraid that care for one's family would protect him. "By the way, to find old Shu." When Ji Yunan saw Ji Xingzhu, the latter had already heard about what happened outside the door and was speechless. This Ji Yunan was really a scourge. He could cause trouble wherever he went. "What are you doing here?" "Wake up by Luo Luo. It's time." Ji Xingzhu looked slightly solemn. Reincarnation was a forbidden thing. If it was exposed, even care for one's family would be in some trouble. So when Ji Yunyan insisted on bringing back Bai Luoluo's body, some people in the family still criticized him. In addition, Ji Yunan spoke again and said indifferently, "I want to see Ji Yunyan." "I'm afraid that won't do." Ji Xingzhu frowned and shook her head. "What? She's not at Red Carp." "Of course, not." Ji Xingzhu gave him a strange look. "My sister has been busy with the martial arts competition recently. Even we haven't seen her for a few days, let alone you." "Just. Before Ji Yunan could finish his sentence, he suddenly paused. This was because the evil divine palace in his mind had suddenly said this. Crime event triggered, serial event, Red Carp martial arts tournament. Serial incidents. Ji Yunan couldn't help but be slightly startled. Chain events were quite rare even in the game. It was a combination of multiple events, and each step would result in a sin value. This kind of event was usually broadcast as a benefit, but he didn't expect to encounter one here. Martial arts meet. Ji Yunan touched his chin and decided to adjust the content of the conversation with Ji Yunyan to focus on this so-called Red Carp martial arts meet. Ji Xingzhu thought he was talking to her, so she nodded and said, "Yes. The organizer of this Red Carp martial arts meet is our family's Chamber of Commerce. Well, go and inform Ji Yunyan that I want to see her in 20 minutes. You." Ji Xingzhu suddenly showed a look of anger and said coldly, "Did you hear what I said? My sister is too busy to leave now. Just go and inform her. Ji Yunan's expression was still calm, as if he was saying something trivial like I'll treat you to a meal. The corner of Ji Xingzhu's mouth twitched slightly. She took a few deep breaths and then sneered, okay, that's what you said. She waved her hand to summon a person who looked like a butler, whispered a few words in his ear, and then went out. Obviously, she didn't want to see Ji Yunan again, so she decided to hide from him. The butler was a middle-aged man with a mustache. With a standard smile on his face, he bowed and said, Mr. Ji Yunan, I'm Wang Dong. You can tell me if you need anything. His smile was very standard, and there was a smile in his eyes, but he looked a little stiff. Wang Dong didn't care about what Miss Xingzhu said about this person is very troublesome, because what he learned for half of his life was to deal with people. However, Ji Yunan's first words made his face twitch. Ji Yunan looked at him strangely, Old Wang. Why isn't your surname Ji Yu? Wang Dong resisted the urge to roll his eyes and replied, Sir, my surname has been Wang since I was a child. I won't change my surname just because I'm employed by a family. Oh. I thought that for a family-like care for one's family, the butler would raise a child from a young age. Ji Yunan recalled the plot in the novels from his previous life. Wang Dong had already regained his composure. Orphans will be raised by the Federation. In principle, private adoption is not allowed. The Federation? Ji Yunan's eyes flickered, and no one knew what he was thinking. The astral realm was a semi-technological civilization, and with the existence of the Technological Federation, it still had some advantages. At the very least, the civilization system was more stable than a feudal civilization, and it was harder to overthrow it from within. Ji Yunan was already at the 3rd level, and very soon, he would be at the 4th level, 5th level, and first transition. After the first transition, he would have to start building his own god kingdom, so he naturally had to think about it. Evil gods were not gods, but rather creatures that were in between gods and devils. However, they still had god kingdoms. The entire second transition was about building a god kingdom. Ji Yunan fell silent, and Wang Dong was happy to do so. After a while, Ji Xingzhu walked over with an awkward expression. With a cold expression, she stood in front of Ji Yunan for a long time, and finally said, Big sister said she will be here soon, fine. Ji Yunan still looked as if it was a matter of course, which made Ji Xingzhu very angry. She wanted to ask Wang Dong to stay, but she heard a commotion outside the door. A servant hurried in and reported something in a low voice. After hearing this, Ji Xingzhu immediately revealed a playful smile and ordered, Let them in. The servant obeyed and left, but Ji Xingzhu turned to look at Ji Yunan. Hey, your trouble is here. Shi Tianjing brought his gang of scoundrels here to cause trouble, and there are people from Shu's family among them. There was still no expression on Ji Yunan's face. It seems that you don't know what Shu's family is. Ji Xingzhu began to explain, there are many big and small families in the Red Carp, but only the Shu family and the Long family can be compared with my care for one's family. I know you are very powerful, but if you dare to hit people from Shu's family, don't expect Big Sister to protect you. Ji Xingzhu sneered. It was not like she had never seen people like Ji Yunan who looked down on everyone in the world just because they had a high cultivation base. Such a guy, naturally, would be taught a lesson by a big family. After all, this world was not a place where one person could play. As she spoke, Shi Tianjing had already come in with a group of people, but the leader was not him, but another young man. They came in front of Ji Yunan, and Shi Tianjing just sneered without saying anything. A short man came up and said with a smile, Brother, you even dare to hit young Master Shi, you are quite bold. Today. Slap. As he was speaking, he suddenly felt a pain in the back of his head, as if he had been slapped. He immediately turned around in anger. Who hit? Ah, Brother Shu. Chapter 46. In a spacious room, a dim light shone through the window. Ji Yunan and Ji Yunyan were sitting across from each other. You being able to become a super at this time is beyond my expectations. Ji Yunyan looked calm. His face did not reveal anything, but he felt helpless. Even in the entire galaxy world, super elites were the backbone of the universe. In the 9th system, which had very few break-world elites, Super elites were the strongest power that could be seen in the human world. So, on the red carpet, the best of the three families' descendants all competed to see who was the first to become a super elite. To level up, Han Sen had prepared and planned for many years. He had even reincarnated into a poor place to get what he wanted. This guy in front of him. Ji Yunan could not help but stare at him. Ji Yunan looked at him as if to say, "You are making a big deal out of nothing." Even with Ji Yunyenji's calmness, she had to take a deep breath to suppress the unfairness in her heart. "Why are you looking for me? I heard your family is holding a martial arts conference." "Yes." Talking about the martial arts conference, Ji Yunyan's face looked tired. "I have been busy with this. Are you interested in joining?" "Oh, I forgot. You already?" "Yes." Ji Yunan nodded with interest. He did not realize he was a super elite. Ji Yunyan's face looked gloomy. The martial arts conference is divided into two groups, prenatal and postnatal. "I can pretend to be prenatal," Ji Yunan answered without hesitation. Although Ji Yunyan could tell he had broken through, that was because Ji Yunyan's skill was special. Plus, Ji Yunan did not try to hide it. If it was necessary, Ji Yunan could even buy a piece of concealment equipment. For the sake of the serial case, it was acceptable to invest some points into it. Ji Yunyan shook his head. "If you join, this martial arts conference will be pointless. How about I arrange for you to be a judge?" "Judge?" "That's right. The martial arts tournament will begin in 20 days, enough time for you to build momentum." Ji Yunyan revealed a light smile. "Just do me a favor. If care for one's family produces another transcendent, its position will be completely stabilized." Ji Yunan rubbed his chin, wondering if this deal was worth it. He obtained the official qualification to participate in the martial arts tournament and the convenience provided by care for one's family, but the price was to be completely roped in by care for one's family. It didn't seem to be a problem. Anyway, he could regret it at any time. Ji Yunan was very optimistic. Eldest senior sister. Woo woo woo. Ever since Bai Luoluo saw Ji Yunyan, she threw herself into her arms and began to cry bitterly. "You're so weak. Looks like you still need some treatment." Magnetic Storm Infantryman Ji Yu Yongshin said. Bai Luoluo's beautiful face immediately paled. Although she had successfully turned evil in the immortal and demon world, it didn't mean that she liked that kind of life. After all, she wasn't Yang Xiaoxiao. The human heart had always been a very complicated thing. As someone who grew up in a city like the Lang Ya world, Bai Luoluo didn't like fighting and killing. If it was in the immortal and demon world, it would be fine. Now that she had returned to the star world, she would naturally adjust slowly. Of course, it was impossible for her to return to her previous pure and innocent state. Bai Luoluo looked at Ji Yunan with a somewhat complicated gaze. She already knew that she didn't transmigrate, but was forcefully reincarnated by Ji Yunan. Thinking back to the familiar figure from that day, the answer was already obvious. So he was the little Mrs. Teacher. Rest well. There's no need to rush your cultivation. Just let nature take its course. Ji Yunyan lightly patted the back of her head and said softly. Compared to Ji Yunan, Bai Luoluo was her greatest karma. Now that the latter could break free from the influence of the clear heart Tao, it couldn't be better. After seeing Bai Luoluo, Ji Yunan had nothing else to do. Just as he was about to return to continue his instance dungeon mission, he was stopped by Ji Yunyan. "You want to reincarnate again?" She pulled Ji Yunan aside and said with a serious expression, "I don't know what you can gain from reincarnation, but reincarnation is definitely not a shortcut." Ji Yunan frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "The stronger the soul, the greater the pressure on the plane when reincarnating. So the plane itself will produce a repulsive force. If the frequency of reincarnation is too high or the duration of reincarnation is too long, it will cause damage to the soul." At this point, Ji Yunyan stared at Ji Yunan and said in a low voice, "If you had been to the reincarnation plane after advancing to the transcendent level, you should have noticed it." Ji Yunan carefully thought about it, and it seemed to be as Ji Yunyan said. After staying in the immortal demon world for a month, he often felt a repulsive force from the world. At first, he thought it was because of his third-order body, but now that he thought about it, it was most likely because of reincarnation. This fact made him a little annoyed. Reincarnation was the main source of his sin points. If there were restrictions, it would greatly slow down his advancement. "I need to wait for a period of time before I can reincarnate again?" he asked. "That's right." Ji Yunyan nodded lightly. "During this period of time, you can come here first. To help you build momentum, you need a suitable identity." "What identity?" "My younger brother." That afternoon, even though Long Quan, the Shi siblings, and even Shu Zun did not spread the news, it still spread at an astonishing speed. In a short 2 days, the entire capital district's upper echelons knew that Long Quan had suffered a great loss in care for one's family, and even had one of his legs broken. And the cause of all this was because his most beloved Shi Miao had provoked someone she shouldn't have. Exactly how many people shouldn't have provoked that one shouldn't have provoked? Some people thought that the person who was provoked was Ji Yunyan himself, and that no one else had the ability to do anything to Long Quan. Others thought that it was some hidden power in care for one's family that had made the move, and that it was Ji Yunyan who had taught an outsider a lesson when he wasn't around. Until one time, Ji Yunyan personally declared in public, "The one who made the move was my younger brother Ji Yunan. He had just become a transcendent half a month ago." It was earth-shattering. An uproar. Who was this Ji Yunan? Ji Yunan actually had a second person who had become a transcendent. The first thing that was clearly investigated was Ji Yunan's identity. He came from a remote branch of care for one's family, his parents had both died, and he was extremely talented. He was discovered by Ji Yunyan a long time ago, and was treated as a private force, hiding and immersing himself in cultivation until he became a transcendent. This information was naturally prepared by Ji Yunyan in advance. Basically, there was no evidence, and it was not convincing at all. But it also made it impossible for people to find any loopholes. There were loopholes everywhere, and they couldn't do anything about it. In any case, the younger generation of care for one's family had a second transcendent. This was an indisputable fact. The world is going to change. This thought emerged in many people's minds. Even if Ji Yunyan had become a transcendent, some people still stood firm, thinking that she was just a step ahead. Xu Feiyan was much younger than Ji Yunyan, and the Long family even had 2 transcendent seeds. But when care for one's family had a second transcendent, all this seemed to have become a joke. Chapter 47. After Ji Yunan's identity was approved by the elders of care for one's family finally began to promote Ji Yunan with all their strength, instead of adding fuel to the fire like before. Therefore, in a very short period of time, not only did Ji Yunan cripple one of Long Quan's legs become widely known, even his fabricated identity began to spread like wildfire. Some people said that he was a rare genius, a hidden secret weapon of care for one's family, which was only waiting for this moment to be used to determine the outcome of the battle. Some people also said that he was an anomaly. Originally, he was just an inconspicuous branch of care for one's family, but because of his own talent, he had reached this stage step by step. And some people, no matter which one it was, there was one more person in the small notebook of all the big families in the capital of Redcarp that they couldn't afford to offend. And Ji Yunyan also began to bring Ji Yunan to visit the high society together. Today, they would attend a banquet, tomorrow, they would cut the ribbon, and the day after that, they would go to watch a martial arts competition. In short, they were using the fastest speed to make Ji Yunan familiar with their faces. Eldest Miss, young Master Nan. Thank you for coming to my daughter's birthday banquet. At the banquet, a middle-aged man in a silver suit was standing in front of Ji Yunan and Ji Yunyan. He spoke with a smile, and his posture was very humble. This middle-aged man was handled by Ji Yunyan. This was the tacit understanding between her and Ji Yunan. After all, this was the 6th banquet in half a month. Even if they didn't have a tacit understanding, they could still practice it. The two of them were personally led by the middle-aged man. Ji Yunyan walked forward amidst the greetings of eldest miss, while Ji Yunan ran to the side and sat alone. Naturally, Ji Yunyan was the focus of attention wherever she went. And because of Ji Yunan's appearance during this period, some people also recognized him. Several young girls next to him, who were holding wine glasses, looked at him. This is the one from Care for One's Family, right? Yes. I heard that he is the same as eldest Miss Gu, a martial artist who can be called a transcendent. Incredible. This conversation naturally fell into Ji Yunan's ears, but he didn't show the slightest bit of expression. He just gulped down mouthful after mouthful of juice. Ji Yunan was now playing the role of a cold and aloof young genius. In a sense, he was also playing himself. He looks so handsome even when he's drinking juice. Ji Yunan's hand stopped for a moment before returning to normal. These young girls who were born in aristocratic families but had no talent in martial arts and were completely raised as flower vases worshipped geniuses like Ji Yunan the most. You sure are carefree, hiding at the side and watching every time. It was unknown when Ji Yunyan had arrived beside him. He sat down with a smile. I'm not interested in dealing with them, Ji Yunan said straightforwardly. Then, he was a little confused. Don't you need to go over there? Today, I'm just here to go through the motions. I'll meet 2 people later. Ji Yunyan answered casually. The martial arts competition will begin in a few days. The martial arts club is recruiting a group of new people. Do you have time to go and have a look? Ji Yunan raised his head as if he was recalling something. The martial arts club is recruiting new people? Okay, I'll go there tomorrow. After this matter was settled, Ji Yunyan didn't stay any longer and continued to participate in the banquet. Ji Yunan sat alone for a while. After dealing with several groups of people, he unexpectedly met a pair of acquaintances. Young Master Nan. Shi Tianjing was standing behind Ji Yunan with his sister, with a slightly restrained smile on his face. But his sister, Shi Miao still looked unwilling. Ji Yunan turned his head and glanced at them. Oh, it's you. What's the matter? Shi Tianjing didn't have the imposing manner he used to have. His smile was a little flattering. I brought my sister here to apologize to you, young Master Nan. He squeezed Shi Miao's shoulder hard. The latter lowered her head and said in a muffled voice, I'm sorry. Ji Yunan didn't pay attention to them and just waved his hand casually. Seeing that he didn't speak, Shi Tianjing didn't dare to say anything else. He quickly left with his sister. When they were far away, Shi Miao shook off her brother's hand and said with a face full of resentment, Brother, even if he's an extraordinaire, we don't need to be so humble. Isn't it all because of you? Shi Tianjing was in a bad mood after being rebuffed, so he snorted and said, What do you mean by that? He hit me first. Shi Miao was suddenly angry. Even her voice became louder. Shi Tianjing was so scared that he hurriedly covered her mouth. Luckily, they were far away, so Ji Yunan didn't seem to hear it. Seeing her brother like this, Shi Miao stomped her feet angrily and walked away alone. However, their voices attracted the attention of another person. A petite girl with light makeup walked over and put her hand on Shi Miao's shoulder. What are you talking about? Jin Dian was curious. Someone dared to hit our Miss Shi. Is he tired of living? Jin Dian was the star of today's banquet. He was also Shi Miao's close friend. The Jin family and the Shi family were equal in status. They were second-tier families in the capital area. As for Ji Yunan's identity, only the higher-ups of the Jin family knew about it. A rich girl like Jin Dian cared about luxury goods like perfume and sports cars. She didn't have time to pay attention to the state of the Jin family. Shi Miao saw that Jin Dian didn't know about it. She didn't want to talk about it, so she said casually, It's someone from Care for One's family. Is it that guy? Jin Dian pointed at Ji Yunan. She had seen the Shi siblings come from there. Yes. Don't go looking for trouble with him, Shi Miao said hurriedly. Don't mess with Care for One's family for no reason. Jin Dian didn't take Shi Miao's attempt to cover up as an explanation. So what if he's from Care for One's family? Care for One's family can be unreasonable. Jin Dian snorted. Just wait and see. Shi Miao watched Jin Dian's figure disappear into the distance. She felt a thrill of revenge, but at the same time, a trace of worry. Jin Dian went to the backstage and searched through the guest list. He immediately found his target. Ji Yunan? A nobody. Miss Jin smiled disdainfully. How dare he hit a woman? Are you a man? She beckoned a maid over and handed her a list of names she had just written. The maid took the list and memorized the names. She stammered, Miss Miss, do I need to inform all the people on this list? That's right. Not one less. Jin Dian glared at her. If you don't have enough time, ask for help. Anyway, before the banquet starts, I want everyone on this list to be ready. The maid hurriedly took the list and went to prepare. She was speechless. She didn't know who had offended her, miss. She didn't know why she had to use so many connections. With so many young masters and young ladies on this list, no one could afford to offend them. Chapter 48. There was no sound in the banquet hall of the Jin family. Jin Qin watched helplessly as young Master Long-Winged Dragon fell to the ground. A look of despair appeared on his face. Jin Dian regretted his decision. No, he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. If she had known this would happen, she would never have helped Shi Miao. She was a lunatic. If he dared to hit someone from the Long family, wouldn't she be in more danger? Her legs began to tremble. She wanted to run off the stage, but she was afraid of attracting the attention of that person. She glanced at the crowd, and saw Shi Tianjing's face was extremely ugly. He was dragging Shi Miao into the crowd, as if he was afraid that Ji Yunan would see them. The silence didn't last long. Finally, someone stood up. Okay, don't make too much trouble. Ji Yunan appeared beside Long Yi. After making sure that Long Yi was not in danger, he shook his head helplessly. Ji Yunan didn't refute him. He smiled and said, "You take care of this." The farce of the Jin family didn't cause any trouble for Ji Yunan. In fact, he was only responsible for taking action. Then he would leave. Ji Yunan would take care of the aftermath. As for how the young masters of the Jin family would look at him. Have you ever seen a player care about the opinion of an NPC? Early the next morning, Ji Yunan was ready to go out. He was going to host the recruitment of the martial arts club. Ji Yunan didn't care about most of the matters related to care for one's family. The only thing he cared about was the martial arts club. This kind of situation happened many times. Naturally, Ji Yunan would hand over the matters related to the martial arts club to him as much as possible. The so-called recruitment of martial arts centers referred to the recruitment of some good seedlings in advance before the official competition of the martial arts tournament began, and the major martial arts centers would recruit them into their own martial arts centers. These young talents were either young geniuses or competitors who had stood out in the preliminaries. However, since the selection had not yet been through the official competition, the recruitment was quite risky. One mistake could lead to a mistake. If they spent a lot of money to sign a contestant who was eliminated in the first round of the martial arts tournament, it would be a big loss. As a huge family, care for one's family naturally had its own chamber of commerce and martial arts club. The Star Cloud Martial Arts Club that Ji Yunan was going to was under the complete control of care for one's family. Young Master Nan, the people from the dojo are already waiting. When Ji Yunan arrived at the door, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes was already waiting for him. It was an acquaintance of Ji Yunan, Wang Dong, who had once greeted him. Wang Dong had a helpless look on his face. He thought that since Ji Yunan was just an outsider, he only needed to deal with him politely. Who knew that this young man would actually become the young master of the main house? Moreover, he was a young master with a rather high status. As the only butler in the family who had ever come into contact with Ji Yunan, Wang Dong was naturally sent over as Ji Yunan's personal butler. Old Wang. The voice of Ji Yunan came from afar. Yes, young master. What instructions do you have for me? As a housekeeper with a strong sense of professionalism, Wang Dong answered responsibly. Well, how can I get to Star Cloud Martial Arts Club? Young master, please follow me. As usual, Lu Danza came to the martial arts club early in the morning and began the day's course training. He was a disciple of Star Cloud Martial Arts Club. He was born in the slums, but his martial arts talent was quite good. He was also very hardworking. Now he was an innate level 5 master. Moreover, he also broke into the official martial arts tournament. In a sense, among the innate masters in the Red Carp, he could be ranked in the top 10-24. There were only 10-24 places in the official tournament. Good morning, senior brother Lu. A short-haired girl came in and saw Lu Danza's figure. She quickly greeted him. Lu Danza also showed a smile. He had a good impression of this girl named Jiyu Yang. Although she was born in a big family like care for one's family, she didn't have that kind of superior attitude. By the way, senior brother Lu. Jiyu Yang seemed to suddenly remember something and said, "You went back early yesterday. The club master said that everyone will gather at the big training ground today." Gather? What happened? Lu Danza frowned slightly. There were only a few days left before the martial arts tournament. He couldn't wait to use every minute and second to train. Jiyu Yang paused for a moment and then said hesitantly, "It's a young master from my family came. This year, he will be responsible for the recruitment of the martial arts club." It was no secret in the martial arts club that Lu Danza had a bad impression of the children of big families because of his childhood experience. Sure enough, Lu Danza snorted and said, "How much do those young masters and young ladies know about our martial arts club? They only know how to point fingers." Although he somewhat agreed with these words in his heart, Jiyu Yang still had to defend himself. "I heard that he is a very powerful young master. Although the existence of Jiyu Nan had been publicized by care for one's family, it was only limited to the people of the upper class. People like Jiyu Yang only knew that Jiyu Nan was the young master of the main family and was very powerful. There was no more detailed information about him. Lu Danza obviously didn't buy it. How powerful? It's just that he has a good family background. If that Miss Jiyu came in person, I would be convinced." As the number one among the younger generation of Redcarp, the legend of Jiyu Nyan had long been talked about. Of course he can't be compared with Miss Jiyu, but, no buts. Lu Danza waved his hand and put down the equipment in his hand. He sneered, "Let's go and see that young master." When Lu Danza went to the hall with a stomach full of inexplicable resentment, Jiyu Nan had already arrived. "Where's the new candidate?" Lu Danza looked at the young man who was surrounded by the crowd. His expression was indifferent, supercilious, his tone was calm, arrogant, and his master, Zhong Dao, who he had always respected, was standing respectfully beside him. Seeing this, Lu Danza could not help but feel a surge of anger in his heart. His master was already an old man, but he still had to bow and scrape to a young man. Wasn't it because he was the young master of care for one's family? However, he was not a child after all. He knew that it was useless for him to complain. Only by improving his strength could he have a chance to speak out. "When I become a transcendent in the future, let's see what kind of attitude you guys will have." Lu Danza couldn't help but think. What he didn't know was that he had already seen it. As the person in charge of Star Cloud Dojo, Zhong Dao certainly knew who Jiyu Nan was. More importantly, he was also present at the Jin family's banquet yesterday. In front of this young man who could stand side by side with Miss, Zhong Dao tried to be as humble as possible. "The first batch of candidates is already waiting. Young Master Nan, please follow me." "Okay." Jiyu Nan nodded casually. He seemed to be careless, but in his heart, he was very serious. As a professional player, as long as it was related to a mission, he couldn't take it lightly. This was the basic quality of a professional player. Because you never know if there is an important piece of information hidden in a seemingly unrelated point. Soon, he was brought into a quiet room by Zhong Dao, and Zhong Dao returned to the hall. Zhong Dao waved his hand to signal the crowd to disperse, and said, "Danza, Lu Wu, you two come with me. Jiyu Yang, go and inform the first batch of candidates to start." "Yes." Jiyu Yang nodded quickly. The young man named Lu Wu lowered his head and walked behind Zhong Dao silently. Only Lu Danza looked a little awkward. "Master, the martial arts competition is about to start, I think." Zhong Dao patted him on the shoulder and said, "I know you want more training, but you can't learn martial arts in 1 or 2 days. Many of the new candidates may be your opponents. Don't you want to know in advance?" Chapter 49. When Jiyu Nan entered the quiet room, the first person he saw was someone he didn't expect. Bai Luo Luo? What are you doing here? Bai Luo Luo was standing in front of the table with a blue notebook in her arms. Her big eyes were wide open. When she saw Jiyu Nan, she quickly put the notebook on the table. "I'm the deacon of the martial arts club." Bai Luo Luo took it for granted and then added, "It's the club owner who forced me to be a recorder." "Don't get me wrong." Jiyu Nan smiled and sat on the main seat. He picked up the notebook and read it. As for what Bai Luoluo said, he didn't believe it. How powerful is Zhong Dao? He even knows the relationship between me and Bai Luoluo. What's written in the notebook was the list of today's recruits and the information of each recruit. After a simple glance, Ji Yunan already had an idea in his heart. At this time, Zhong Dao also came in, followed by his two favorite disciples. He came to Ji Yunan and introduced them to him. Young Master Nan, this is Lu Wu and Lu Danza. They will also participate in the martial arts competition this time. Please take care of them. Many people from Star Cloud Martial Arts Club were going to participate in the martial arts competition, but only these two people had the potential to get a good ranking. Zhong Dao had done his best for the future of his disciples. The judges of the martial arts competition were very authoritative. Their comments often determined a contestant's off-site support rate. For many people, this was even more important than winning or losing. Lu Wu and Lu Danza also bowed to greet him. The former was still expressionless, while the latter looked respectful but disdainful. Of course, he thought that his master was just being polite. How could a disciple of an aristocratic family take care of him when he was going to participate in the martial arts competition? Ji Yunan just nodded slightly. He was not interested in these trivial things. He said directly, "Let them in." Zhong Dao didn't dare to say more. He had to ask Ji Yang to let the first batch of interviewees in. At the same time, Ji Yunan took out the observer's goggles and put them on. The martial arts club on Red Carp was more like a comprehensive martial arts club. Not only did they have the function of guiding students in their martial arts, but they also signed contracts with students as an officially recognized organization. When students participated in various martial arts competitions and even attended commercial activities, the martial arts club would take a cut. If martial artists were compared to the celebrities in Ji Yunan's previous life, then the martial arts centers would be entertainment companies. The first person came in quickly. It was a little girl in a samurai suit. She walked in and bowed to them, revealing a sweet smile. "Hello everyone, my name is Li. Weak footsteps, weak arms, unstable inner breath, no hope of reaching the innate realm before the age of 25. Unqualified, next." Ji Yunan's cold voice rang out. He didn't even let her finish saying his name before he directly eliminated her. Every feature of these contestants was exposed to the observer's goggles. Coupled with Ji Yunan's experience, it was almost impossible for him to make a wrong judgment. Therefore, not only was the little girl stunned, but Zhong Dao was also a little stunned. He turned his head and said cautiously, "Young Master Nan, Li Lan has reached the peak of the acquired realm at the age of 16. She's a seeded contestant in the Queen group of the martial arts competition." Ji Yunan shook his head. "Her foundation is too weak. She can't pass 3 rounds of the martial arts competition." Zhong Dao had no choice but to wave his hand and ask Li Lan to leave when he heard the firm judgment. Li Lan's face turned pale. Obviously, she didn't expect that she would be eliminated in such an inexplicable way. She stomped her feet angrily and strode away. Ji Yang, who was also stunned, hurried to open the door for her and greeted the next interviewee. The people waiting at the door were also startled by this amazing speed. Someone congratulated her. "Li Lan, the examiner must have your information and let you pass directly, right?" This person seemed to be Li Lan's old acquaintance. There was a hint of flattery in his tone. The people around them also looked at her with envy. Unfortunately, his flattery failed. Li Lan snorted with a gloomy face, "I didn't pass. I don't know what the examiner was doing. I was eliminated as soon as I spoke." "Ah, then why did he eliminate you?" Li Lan clenched her teeth and said nothing. In fact, she knew that she pursued the realm too much and didn't have a solid foundation. However, it was not impossible to improve her foundation. Was it necessary to eliminate her because of this? Therefore, she left quickly and said angrily, "If the Star Cloud Martial Arts Club doesn't want me, there are other martial arts clubs that want me. Just wait and see." A genius like her who reached the peak of the acquired realm at the age of 16 was naturally the top choice of the martial arts clubs because she could reach the innate realm at any time and become the backbone of the martial arts clubs. After all, There were only a few people like Ji Yunan who dared to say that she couldn't reach the innate realm at the age of 25. Li Lan's departure didn't affect the interview or the elimination. Young Master Nan, you've seen all the 14 people in the first batch. Is there no one suitable? Zhong Dao said helplessly as he looked at the series of crosses on Ji Yunan's list. Normally, the best candidates would be placed in the first batch every year. This year's situation was neither good nor bad. There weren't any outstanding talents, but it was not. Ji Yunan waved his hand. They are all geniuses. They are not worth the price. Ji Yunan didn't give the evaluation of elimination to all of them. However, even if he let them pass, the level of the contract he took out was not high, and those arrogant candidates couldn't accept it at all. Inform the second batch. Ji Yunan said to Ji Yuyang, who was standing at the door, forget it. Let the second batch come together. It's not troublesome anyway. The corner of Ji Yuyang's mouth twitched. She thought to herself, it's indeed not troublesome if all of them are like you. However, she didn't dare to say it out loud, so she obediently went to inform the second batch. The room fell into silence again. Ji Yunan closed his eyes to rest, while Zhong Dao's face didn't look too good. Star Cloud Martial Arts Club was also a first-class martial arts club. That was why they could gather so many talents. However, they were all rejected by this young master Ji Yunan. These people were all fighting for them outside. If this continued, it would be difficult for the next year's martial arts competition. As for Lu Wu and Lu Danza, Lu Wu still looked calm. No one knew what he was thinking, but Lu Danza's anger was almost out of control. In his eyes, Ji Yunan had become a model example of a layman guiding an expert. He obviously didn't know anything, but he insisted on giving orders here. He looked around. His master was silent. Lu Wu, that blockhead, only knew how to lower his head. Anne Bai Luo was still writing something in her notebook. Therefore, Lu Danza gritted his teeth and resolutely walked in front of Ji Yunan. He said in a deep voice, "Young Master Nan, those people just now are rare talents. Please reconsider." Before Ji Yunan could speak, Zhong Dao's face changed. He scolded, "Bastard. Who do you think you are? Get out of here right now." As he scolded, he carefully observed Ji Yunan's expression. It wasn't that Zhong Dao was weak. It was just that the scene yesterday was too shocking. He watched as the Long family's Long Yi was slapped to the point where he didn't know if he was dead or alive. Even the Long family was not in this person's eyes. Zhong Dao didn't think he had any face. Lu Danza's face turned ugly after being scolded. Ji Yunan just looked at him indifferently. Just at this moment, a figure hurriedly ran in. It was a girl dressed in plain clothes. Her trousers were patched. She looked pretty, but her hair was braided, which made her look rustic. "I am sorry, I'm late." The girl apologized as soon as she came in. Zhong Dao frowned and looked at her. "You're the girl who wanted to make more money and decided to go to Tonghe Martial Arts School? What are you doing here now?" The girl blushed after being scolded by Zhong Dao. She could only keep bowing. "It was all my fault. Please give me a chance." Zhong Dao snorted. "Martial arts requires a pure heart. Since you like to make money, then, wait." Ji Yunan's voice sounded. Zhong Dao's words stopped him. He could only look at Ji Yunan in shock. At this time, Ji Yunan's eyes were shining. He looked at the girl as if she was a rare treasure. "What's your name?" Chapter 50. From the first moment he saw Lin Yunyun, Ji Yunan knew that this girl must be the key to the chain of events. This had nothing to do with the intuition of a pro, but the observer's eyepiece clearly showed that this girl's entire body was flowing with violent inner breath. Until now, even though Ji Yunan still hadn't come into contact with any exercises related to inner breath, he had a good understanding of the practice of inner breath. In essence, it was a high-energy accumulation system. High-energy true qi would travel in the body to temporarily strengthen the body. When the true qi was highly compressed, it could also be operated outside the body. However, he had never heard of anyone who could keep the true qi in the state of wandering forever. This was no longer wandering, it was permanent. "Classmate Lin Yunyun," Ji Yunan said with a smile, "ever since you started practicing martial arts, you've been suffering from pain all over your body, and it was especially difficult for you to practice inner breath. Only in the past 2 years did you experience explosive growth? Lin Yunyun was stunned by his words and said subconsciously, "You. How did you know?" It was no secret that she suddenly felt that practicing martial arts had become easier in the past 2 years. However, how did this person know that her whole body was in pain when she practiced martial arts? In order to not let her family worry, she endured the pain every day and never told anyone. How did he know so clearly? Ji Yunan showed a knowing smile. In his opinion, Lin Yunyun obviously had a special physique. Her body was born with the ability to contain a huge amount of true qi. Therefore, before she filled up her body, the progress of her inner breath practice was extremely slow. Since her body was filled with true qi, any touch on any part of her body would cause unbearable pain in her muscles. Until her body began to fill up, the stored true qi began to feed back to her body, making her practice progress by leaps and bounds. How I know is not important. What's important is, do you want to join the Star Cloud Dojo? Ji Yunan asked directly. Of course I want to. Lin Yunyun nodded excitedly, then became a little sad, but I need money, the salary of a C-level contract. I'll give you an A-level contract, Ji Yunan said without hesitation. Young Master Nan. Zhong Dao stared at him dumbfoundedly. The last trace of hope in his heart was crushed. It seemed that this young Master Nan really didn't know how to recruit new people. Lu Danza was already standing to the side. He didn't want to argue with Ji Yunan in front of others, but he still had a look of disdain on his face. Really? Thank you so much. Lin Yunyun was pleasantly surprised. She quickly took the contract from Ji Yunan and followed by Luo Luo downstairs. After Lin Yunyun left, Zhong Dao let out a sigh and said, Young Master Nan, even if you really think highly of Lin Yunyun, there's no need to give her an A-grade contract. I think she would sign it without hesitation even if it was only a B-grade contract. Ji Yunan gave him a look that said, What do you know? And said, an A-level contract lasts for 10 years, while a B-level contract only lasts for 5 years. Zhong Dao was speechless for a while. He said in a daze, Do you really think so highly of her? Of course. Ji Yunan pointed to the notebook and said, You see, she is only at the 5th level of the acquired realm. When the day of the martial arts competition comes, she will at least be at the peak of the acquired realm. She may even be at the innate realm. Do you believe it? Zhong Dao naturally didn't believe it. The martial arts competition was only a few days away. How could it be possible? How could it be possible? Lu Danza exclaimed. If cultivation was so easy, then wouldn't it be a joke for them to work so hard? It's possible. What surprised him was that someone who hadn't spoken all this while actually spoke at this moment. That was his senior brother, the eldest senior brother of the Star Cloud Dojo, Lu Wu. Lu Wu frowned at this time as if there was something he couldn't figure out. That girl, her true qi is very scary. True qi? Lu Danza doubted Ji Yunan, but he trusted his senior brother very much. At this time, he also pondered. However, Ji Yunan looked at Lu Wu in surprise. This person could see the problem of Lin Yunyun. His perception was a bit abnormal. The true qi in Lin Yunyun's body almost completely sank into the muscles and tissues. Only those who were at least at the transcendent level could see some clues. This Lu Wu was also a little bit away from the peak of the innate realm. It was a bit strange. This Lu Wu was also going to participate in the martial arts competition. Maybe he was also a candidate for the task. Ji Yunan silently made a note of him in his heart and then continued with his interview. With Ji Yunan's amazing speed, the whole interview process was carried out very quickly. The remaining 3 batches of people spent a total of less than an hour. The result was not much different from the first batch. The elimination rate was still as high as 80%. The difference was that the last batch of people didn't have such a high self-evaluation, but several people chose to sign the contract. This made Zhong Dao look a little better. At least it was not a total loss. As for Lu Danza, his face was still gloomy. Although Lu Wu had endorsed this young Master Nan, it was a fact that the harvest this year was greatly reduced. Could a single Lin Yunyun compare to so many talents that had been pushed out? Lu Danza didn't believe it. Another interviewee was ruthlessly eliminated. Ji Nan gently rubbed between his eyebrows and said, "There is one last one, right? Let him in." "Wait." Zhong Dao hurriedly stopped Ji Yang and said to Ji Nan, "Young Master Nan, the last person's aptitude is ordinary, but he has a very powerful background." Ji Nan glanced at him and then looked at the information on the list. Hu Daobin, acquired level 5, 23 years old. Even on the surface, his aptitude was ridiculously poor. Logically speaking, such a person was not qualified to be on the list at all, and it was impossible to invite him to the interview. "He is from the military," Zhong Dao explained in a low voice. "His sister is the military goddess Hu Wei. She made some mistakes in the military and was kicked out, so..." Ji Nan raised his eyebrows. "So you are going to recruit this person and bring disaster to Star Cloud Martial Arts Club?" The so-called mistakes were mostly misdeeds, so there was no need to think too much about it. Zhong Dao also smiled bitterly. Of course, he knew that Hu Daobin was not a good person, but for the friendship of the military goddess, he could bear with it. Anyway, Hu Daobin was just trying to avoid the limelight. Would Hu Daobin be willing to stay in the martial arts club? However, Ji Nan sneered and directly threw the list on the table. "Then there is no need to look at it. Ask him to get out." "Young Master Nan." Zhong Dao was stunned. He didn't expect that his words not only did not work, but also had the opposite effect. Of course, whether he said it or not, Ji Nan would not compromise for such a trivial matter. The evil god was not evil. Wouldn't it be a weakness if he had to do it? A qualified professional player could trade with an NPC or even compromise for the sake of a mission, but they would never respond to an NPC. Because the identity of an NPC was meaningless to a player. To put it bluntly, Ji Nan could take advantage of others, but others could not take advantage of him. As soon as Ji Nan's voice fell, the door was pushed open, startling Ji Yang, who was standing by the door. The person who appeared in front of everyone was not the young man who indulged in debauchery in Zhong Dao's impression, but a woman. This woman was wearing a military uniform, and her facial lines were firm yet gentle. She stared at Zhong Dao with sparkling eyes. Hu Daobin was standing beside her with a gloating smile on his face. Chapter 51. In the quiet room of the Star Cloud Dojo, the unrelated people had already left. Hu Daobin's injuries were stabilized and only a few key members were left. Ji Nan sat calmly on the main seat while Zhong Dao and Bai Luo stood on either side of him. Hu Wei glared at him fiercely. "What are you looking at? Do you want to get beaten up again?" Ji Nan glared back at her. Hu Wei had never been beaten into submission in her life. She immediately slammed the table and stood up. "Come on. All right, both of you stop talking. Don't fall for the Long family's instigation." Lu Xinyu had no choice but to stand up and act as a peacemaker. Hu Wei clearly respected Lu Xinyu and sat back down resentfully. Ji Nan didn't have such a good temper. He raised his eyebrows and said, "I don't need you to lecture me. If you have something to say, say it." "Bastard, you." Hu Wei was furious again. Lu Xinyu could only stop her with a bitter smile. "One of you is Ji Yunyan's best friend, and the other is his brother. Why do you have to go this far?" Lu Xinyu shook her head. "Take a look at this." As she spoke, she handed a piece of information to the two of them. It clearly stated that Hu Daobin didn't come to the Star Cloud Dojo in the first place. He was lured here by someone who deliberately wanted to sow discord between Ji Nan and Hu Wei. According to the analysis of the information, the most likely candidate was Long Yi from the Long family. Dragon wings? Ji Nan's lips curled into a smile. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't know Long Yi. He was just showing off yesterday. After all, as a professional gamer, being sensitive to information was one of his basic abilities. He even guessed that Hu Wei might have been lured here by someone. He had previously asked Zhong Dao when Hu Daobin's name was handed over. He wanted to confirm his guess, but he didn't know who it was at that time. After all, he had too many enemies. Now that it was confirmed that it was Long Yi, it made sense. Ji Nan didn't think he had the constitution of a protagonist, so he wouldn't attract hatred wherever he went. Other than the first time, which was an accident, the Long family's shadow had always been there. The Long family's strategy was also very simple. Don't you, Ji Yunan, refuse to submit to anyone? Don't you like to slap people's faces? Then we'll keep sending our faces to your doorstep for you to slap. When you slap the faces of the government, the military, and all the big families, you won't be able to survive. Unless Ji Yunan's power was enough to suppress the entire capital, otherwise, this game was ultimately played with brains. But do you really think I will play by your rules? Ji Yunan's lips curled into a cold smile. He got up and was about to leave. Lu Xinyu also stood up. She still wanted to persuade Ji Yunan to reconcile with Hu Wei. Ji Yunan, you won't lose anything in this matter. Why don't we all take a step back and you apologize to Hu Wei? Lu Xinyu said halfway and found that she couldn't continue. Because Ji Yunan's cold gaze fell on her face, as if he was looking at a dead person. She didn't doubt that he would smash her head with a punch in the next moment. Fortunately, Ji Yunan didn't make a move in the end. He just smiled and said, for your sister's sake, I'll pretend you didn't say anything. If you dare speak to me like that again, I'll break your legs. After saying this, Ji Yunan swaggered off. Care for one's family. Ji Yunan sat in his room, and Wang Dong was standing beside him. Young Master Nan, the information you wanted. Ji Yunan took the information from Wang Dong. After looking at it quietly for a few minutes, he frowned and said, Is there so little information about Lin Yunyun? The information in Ji Yunan's hands only showed Lin Yunyun's family information and the situation of her participation in the martial arts competition. This did not match the intelligence ability of care for one's family at all. Wang Dong also heard the recent rumors. It was said that this person had a violent temperament. He quickly said carefully, this can only be found in a short period of time. If you need, you can ask your subordinates to trace it all the way. Well, do your best. Ji Yunan nodded lightly and didn't say much. After all, it was a task that had just been completed during the day. The time was too short, and he couldn't ask for too much. He turned his head to look at another piece of information. This was the information he requested, to find trouble with the Long family. It seems that you're quite interested in the Long family. A voice came from the side. Jiu Xingzhu's figure slowly walked in. Ji Yunan said without raising his head, remember to knock the door next time. The corner of Jiu Xingzhu's mouth twitched slightly. She snorted softly and said, this time Long Yi did a good job. He didn't leave any evidence, and we can't question him. After a pause, she said again, Big Sister asked me to bring you a message. Don't be impulsive. Ji Yunan, who was sitting calmly and quietly, suddenly frowned when he heard that. However, Jiu Xingzhu showed a bit of a smile. She thought in her heart, as expected, only Big Sister can control him, but she didn't know that what Ji Yunan thought was completely different from what she had guessed. The people of care for one's family all thought that they were brought by Ji Yunyan, so they naturally had to listen to Ji Yunyan's command. But in fact, they were just cooperating with each other. There was no reason for Ji Yunyan not to understand this. Then what did she mean by sending someone to pass the message? Was it purely advice? However, this kind of excuse could only have the opposite effect, and even irritate him. Ji Yunan touched his chin. This abnormal behavior of Ji Yunyan finally aroused his suspicion. What happened before began to replay in his mind. From Long Yi's provocation, the root of everything seemed to fall on one person. Ji Yunan picked up the intelligence report next to him. Sure enough, he saw a person who could not have appeared, but seemed to have appeared naturally. Shimiao. A little interesting. By the way, young Master Nan. Wang Dong saw that the atmosphere was not right and hurriedly said, just now, 2 Miss Lu came to visit you. Do you need to let them in? 2 Miss Lu? Ji Yunan was stunned for a moment. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he immediately threw Jiu Xingzhu aside. It seemed that what he said before he left had an effect. Did this little girl, Land Marigold, really think that she could trick me without paying the price? First, I will give her some eye medicine, as a small punishment. Then let's see them first. After a moment. We are here to see by Luo Luo. Lu Xinyu stood in front of Ji Yunan, a warm smile on her face. I heard that her condition has improved. Lu Xinyu and her sister, Land Marigold, were born in a spiritual martial family in the foreign world. They were Ji Yunyan's good friends. At first, they were invited to treat Bai Luoluo's spiritual trauma. In the end, they did not have a good solution. When they found a solution, they were told that Bai Luoluo had already been cured. And the one who treated her was Ji Yunnan. Lu Xinyu used this as an excuse to visit Ji Yunnan, and it was really hard for him to refuse. Her condition is better, but the direction is not quite right. Ji Yunnan thought of the little lowly's experience in the immortal demon world. Do you want to take a look again? As he said this, his eyes could not help but glance at Land Marigold. And this Black Widow classmate, whose strength had caused the death of her teammates, was at this time looking straight at the tip of her shoes. Lu Xinyu showed a happy expression. Mr. Ji Yu, if you don't mind, that would be great. Although she wanted to visit and test Ji Yunnan's attitude, as a doctor, her concern for Bai Luoluo was not fake. She sincerely wanted to cure her spiritual trauma. Some doctors did not like others to interfere with their patients. Because of the tradition of practicing medicine in her family, Lu Xinyu was very careful in this aspect. Chapter 52. Ji Yunnan had never thought of himself as the smartest person in the world. In his previous world, it was common for NPCs to be smarter than players. After all, NPCs' intelligence could be adjusted, but humans were born with it. Players had their own ways of dealing with NPCs that were smarter than themselves. The easiest way was to kill them with a single slash. An angry roar came from behind Ji Yunnan. It was sixth Uncle Long, who had witnessed Long Quan's death. He was filled with grief and indignation. Long Quan was one of the Long family's most promising juniors. He might even be able to climb to greater heights, but he died just like that. He supported Long Quan's headless corpse and stared at Ji Yunnan with bloodshot eyes. I don't care who you are. The Long family won't let you off. Ji Yunnan smiled. Don't worry. After tonight, the Long family will most likely cease to exist. Thunder rumbled. Ji Yuxingzhu handed a stack of documents to Ji Yunyenji and said softly, Big sister. He circled a name before he left. The documents were the same ones that Wang Dong had gathered for Ji Yunnan. Oh! Ji Yunyan took off his spectacles. He didn't take the documents. Is it Shi Miao's name? Yes. Ji Yuxingzhu replied in shock. She looked at Ji Yunyan with a strange expression. She didn't know what kind of riddle they were playing. He finally understood. Ji Yunyenji sighed softly. Let's spread the word. No one will be able to sleep tonight. There's activity. Ji Yuxingzhu's eyes flashed sharply. She seemed to have gleaned some insider information from Ji Yunyan's words. Ji Yunyan didn't say anything. She stretched out her hand and covered the documents on the table. Almost at the same time, another person hurriedly walked in from the door. Ji Yuxingzhu's expression darkened. She was about to scold the person who didn't know the rules when she turned around. Big uncle. Yes. Ji Mingyuan only nodded, then said, immediately inform the various divisions to surround and annihilate the Long family. I've already spoken to the government. Encircle and annihilate the Long family. Ji Yuxingzhu's eyes almost popped out. Even though the Long family was currently weak, they were still one of the three great families. How could they encircle and annihilate them just like that? Ji Mingyuan didn't have time to explain to her. He looked directly at Ji Yunyan and said, Ji Yunnan killed Long Quan. This matter can't be settled easily. I'll take care of the Long family's side, you go and stabilize that brat Ji Yunnan. At this point, he could not help but smile bitterly. We still missed a step. No one expected him to have already entered the refinement realm. Sixth dragon couldn't even save his own life. Ji Yunyan, on the other hand, was expressionless as he said indifferently, the stronger he is, the more advantageous it is for us. No matter how many things we give him, it will only be a left-handed transfer of power. Once the Long family is destroyed, everything will be worth it. Ji Yunnan sat peacefully in the ruins, surrounded by broken limbs and broken pieces of flesh, blood flowing like a river. Shi Miao's face was pale as she knelt to one side. No one knew what she was thinking. Brother Long Quan was dead, Long Yi was dead, and even sixth dragon uncle and a few of his friends were killed by this man. She had never seen so many dead people in her life. Why didn't you kill me? Shemiao's heart was like dead ashes as she looked coldly at Ji Yunan. Don't worry, I'm going to kill you soon. Ji Yunan replied seriously. Someone sent you to me. I want to see why she wants you dead. Who? Here he comes. Ji Yunan gestured to the side with his mouth. Shemiao turned her head and saw a figure approaching quickly. It was Ji Yunyanji. Ji Yunyan's footsteps seemed slow but were actually fast. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Ji Yunan and Long Yi. I thought you wouldn't kill me if you figured out that I was the mastermind. Ji Yunyan sighed as he looked at the corpses on the ground. Isn't that what you wanted to see? Ji Yunan smiled. Indeed, from his meeting with Shemiao to the incident with the Jin family, the recruitment of the dojo, and the exposure of Long Yi's scheme, everything was part of Ji Yunyan's plan. When Shemiao said the words Miss Ji Yu, the whole thing was laid out in front of Ji Yunan. Using Shemiao to lure Long Quan out so that I would appear in front of the Long family, was that your original goal? Ji Yunan said as he sat on the ground. That's right. Ji Yunyan replied calmly. I just didn't think that you'd already become a transcendent. That's why I had this plan. It's no wonder that a busy person like you would accompany me to all kinds of events. Ji Yunan had been puzzled. Even if Ji Yunyan wanted to promote him in high society, there was no need for Ji Yunyan to personally accompany him every time. Now he understood that she had already predicted that someone from the Long family would cause trouble. Only when she was present could she completely control the situation and lead things in the direction she wanted. So you were the one who found the Lu family sisters, right? Ji Yunan thought of Lu Sinyu's coincidental arrival. Although the result was different from what she had expected, the timing was indeed very coincidental. If she hadn't been present, the conflict between Ji Yunan and Hu Wei would have been even more irreconcilable. Not really. They did come for something. Ji Yunyan seemed to say everything he knew. At this moment, he revealed a faint smile. I just let her discover something by accident. Ji Yunan shook his head. He wasn't interested in the details of Ji Yunyan's actions. Since the question was answered, then, Ji Yunan suddenly opened his eyes and punched at the top of Ji Yunyan's head at an unbelievable speed. He didn't hold back at all. He even used his shadow power. The speed of his punch even broke through the sound barrier. However, Ji Yunyan didn't move. It was as if he had been prepared for it. The space in front of him rippled. When Ji Yunan's punch landed, the ripples suddenly expanded. It was like a water surface that had been hit. It shook rapidly. However, Ji Yunyan was unharmed. However, Ji Yunan's punch wasn't a simple punch. Endless shadows overflowed from his hand and directly entered the ripples. Ji Yunyan's expression gradually turned serious. She knew that she was about to face a full-powered Ji Yunan. In the whole thing, the only thing she didn't take into account was Ji Yunan's own strength. Nuanced state. Then let me see what's so special about your shadow power. Ji Yunyan didn't have any fluctuations in his heart. His entire body was like a machine as he calmly raised his hand. Endless shadows poured in. However, there seemed to be an invisible barrier in front of Ji Yunyan. All the power that entered this surface immediately dissipated. Until, crack. The sound of something shattering could be heard in the space. Ji Yunyan's face was slightly pale. However, his expression gradually became calm. He stretched out his hand and pushed forward. Endless shadows instantly surged out. Ji Yunan's expression changed slightly. His figure flickered, and he appeared 100 meters away. Shemiao was instantly submerged. I didn't expect you to have this kind of power. Ji Yunan couldn't help but look at Ji Yunyan with a strange expression. He felt more and more that this world seemed to have nothing to do with the game in his previous life. However, the power system was still in the game. Otherwise, a civilization that cultivated the martial Tao couldn't possibly have such a strange law power. The law of reflection was once jokingly called by players as the effect of force is mutual. In the later stages, it even had the strange effect of turning black into white. Chapter 53. How could they deal with an NPC that was too smart? As mentioned before, most players would just kill the NPC so that they could keep dealing with the stupid NPCs. Ji Yunan did the same. He wouldn't mind killing Ji Yunyan if he had the chance, but the latter had proven that killing her wasn't easy. Even though she was still a chaotic prime and had just entered the transcendent level, the law of reflection was so strange that it could be used in all kinds of wonderful ways. The law itself was enough for her to fight against regular nuance level players. However, it was a pity that Ji Yunan was a veteran who had been through hundreds of battles. The enemies he had faced in the past were much stronger than Ji Yunyanji. Just as Ji Yunyanji breathed a sigh of relief, a pitch-black figure slowly emerged from her shadow, then suddenly sprang out and stabbed her in the heart with a sword. The dark shadow sword pierced through the girl's heart and took away her life. Ji Yunyan stared at Ji Yunan in shock, as if she couldn't believe that he would really kill her. Then, she slowly collapsed. "Stop pretending," said Ji Yunan calmly. "Every force is reciprocal, and so is life and death. An attack that doesn't find the point of reflection can't kill you." Ji Yunan's voice echoed in the air. Ji Yunyan's body on the ground gradually dissipated, and a brand new Ji Yunyan slowly walked over. "You seem to know me very well." Ji Yunyan's eyes were filled with curiosity. Ji Yunan didn't deny it. "I just know this world very well." He had seen the characteristics of the law of reflection in his previous life. As for resurrection, it wasn't something impressive in the game. Ji Yunan wasn't completely helpless, but the appearance of this power made him really interested in Ji Yunyan. He could leave some difficult tasks to her. Ji Yunan pulled back his hand and looked at the dead Shimiao. A strange smile appeared on his face and he said, "Now, let's talk about the terms." "What conditions?" Ji Yunyan secretly heaved a sigh of relief, but he spoke indifferently. The power of shadow was indeed extraordinary. It was more strange and unpredictable than any power she had seen before. If Ji Yunan was still unwilling to stop, the result would be unpredictable. Her immortality was not limitless. "I want to completely take over the martial arts meet." Ji Yunan's face didn't have the slightest smile. If Ji Yunyan didn't agree to this condition, he would immediately turn hostile. Players were a group of very realistic people. Ji Yunan didn't care about being used or not. Wasn't helping NPCs complete quests in the game the same as being used? However, if any NPC dared to interfere with his quest, he would definitely hack them to death. Therefore, he could be the vanguard for care for one's family on the condition that he took over the martial arts meet. Ji Yunyan was a little scared by his stare. He could only bite the bullet and agree, "Okay. What are you going to do?" Destroying the Long family was of course the most important thing, but the martial arts meet was also the main task of care for one's family. They couldn't let Ji Yunan do whatever he wanted. Ji Yunan didn't know what was going on. He shook his head and said, "You will know when the time comes." When Ji Yunan returned to care for one's family, the sisters of Lu's family were still waiting for him. Land Marigold still pretended not to know him. Lu Sinu's gaze was a little strange. Bai Luo opened her big eyes and looked innocent. "Although I don't know what method you used, to cure her." Lu Sinu's face was a little dark. "But I hope you can try to use a more sunny method. For example, I hope that when I ask her what her dream is, she won't tell me that she wants to be a killer queen." Lu Sinu was expressionless. "Oh, isn't that good?" Ji Yunan said after thinking for a while. Land Marigold quickly said, "Sister, I think we should stay for a little longer and help her sort it out." It had to be said that Land Marigold's words touched her heart. Lu Sinu nodded immediately. After the two left, it was not until midnight that Land Marigold sneaked into Ji Yunan's room again. "Tell me the details of the mission." Naturally, Ji Yunan didn't sleep. When Land Marigold came, he said, "By the way, I don't have much time." "How is the time flow?" Land Marigold introduced the mission as quickly as she could. In fact, it wasn't complicated. It sounded like an ordinary bodyguard mission. Different from the tower defense mission like guarding White Dew, this mission was more like the Blue Sky City mission that Ji Yunan had seen before. It was to protect a target NPC. The more troublesome thing was that this mission wasn't something that Ji Yunan had encountered in his previous life. But immediately after, Land Marigold told Ji Nan an unexpected problem. The time flow is 10 times faster, but the mission starts tomorrow night. Land Marigold said calmly. The world rules of a relatively large plane couldn't be reset. Therefore, the plane coordinates would only appear at the time of the mission. Ji Nan calculated in his mind. If he entered tomorrow, he wouldn't have enough time. The martial arts tournament is, That's not right. I have the final say in the martial arts tournament. Early the next morning, Ji Nan had a good sleep. Care for one's family was still busy. The encirclement of the Long family yesterday wasn't very successful. After all, the Long family had 4 transcendents. Apart from 6th Uncle Long, who had died at the hands of Ji Nan, there were 3 more. Unfortunately, all 3 had escaped last night. Before the 3 of them were captured or killed, Care for one's family wouldn't dare to kill the Long family's forces. Otherwise, the 3 of them would drop everything and become assassins without any qualms. They would assassinate the higher-ups of Care for one's family one by one. At the end of the day, it was Ji Nan's decisiveness that caused trouble. No one had expected that not only had Ji Nan killed Long Quan, but he had also killed 6th Uncle Long. The death of an transcendent had caused a great feud that wouldn't end until one of them was dead. This forced Care for one's family to act in advance. It was also because they hadn't prepared well that the 3 transcendents had all escaped. What? You want to delay the start of the martial arts tournament? Jiu Xingzhu looked at Ji Nan in front of her. She felt like her scalp was about to explode. At a time when there were so many things to worry about, he actually came to stir up trouble. Seriously, how long do you want to delay it? Ji Nan asked calmly. At least 3 days. We'll talk about the exact time when I come back. Ji Nan didn't hold back at all and directly spoke in a commanding tone. The veins on Jiu Xingzhu's forehead bulged, and even her breathing quickened. Did this person know what the martial arts tournament meant to Care for one's family? All the martial artists in the Red Carp were looking forward to this annual event, but you actually... Okay. Big sister. Jiu Xingzhu felt like the world was going crazy. Ji Nan nodded in satisfaction and left. Jiu Xingzhu, however, couldn't help but stop Ji Nan. Big sister, why are you accompanying him in his madness? Ji Nan smiled silently. Unless he wants to ruin the event, we'll listen to him for the rest of the martial arts tournament. Why? Jiu Xingzhu wasn't convinced at all. They had worked so hard to prepare the tournament, and it was handed over to Ji Nan just like that. Ji Nan looked at her seriously. I can guarantee you that if you don't listen to him, this martial arts tournament will definitely not go on. Ji Nan was right. Although it was only a verbal agreement, Ji Nan was fearless. If he came back and found that the martial arts tournament had already begun, he would definitely start a massacre on the spot. Although Care for one's family earned the most from the Long family incident, Ji Nan didn't actually gain nothing. He at least proved to everyone that he, Ji Nan, was a nuance realm powerhouse and one of the top martial artists on this planet. In other words, he now had the right to talk to any force. He was already a real big shot. And now, this big shot came to a low bungalow and lurked in the dark, silently watching a girl practicing martial arts. Student Lin Yunyun didn't notice this at all. She woke up early as usual, practiced in the morning, endured the pain day after day, and honed her inner breath. Chapter 54. You know what? I'm very rich. Ji Nan said in a persuasive tone, come with me, I can give you an endless supply of pills. Perhaps it was because of the thrill just now, Lin Yunyun seemed very calm. I don't need it. Oh. Why? So many people died. We can't hide it from the police. Lin Yunyun seemed to be disheartened. It won't be long before they find me. Dad and sister will know. Ji Nan looked at her blankly. To be honest, he had thought of many answers in his mind, but he never thought it would be this one. Police. At least 100 people had died in the siege of the Long family yesterday. Even he himself had been killed in the Long family meeting house, but he hadn't seen the police come out. It could only be said that he had been standing too high from the beginning. In fact, for the civilians, the government was still the most authoritative institution. Regarding this, Ji Yunan didn't know how to explain to Lin Yunyun. You may not know who I am. He threw the plastic bag aside. But I'm not afraid of the police. If you are willing to follow me, I guarantee that no one will dare to investigate you. Lin Yunyun raised her head and looked at him, her gaze clearly filled with distrust. Ji Yunan shook his head helplessly and suddenly punched the wall next to him. The wall, which was already full of scars, suddenly collapsed, revealing a shocked family behind the wall. It was a middle-aged couple and a 7 or 8-year-old boy, a very normal family of 3. Who are you? The man asked with a sullen face. No one would be in a good mood when their wall was smashed. Ji Yunan gently waved his hand, and 3 pitch-black arrows shot out, directly piercing the 3 people's eyebrows. Did you see that? Ji Yunan helped Lin Yunyun up, not minding her embarrassment at all. Killing people is not a big deal. As long as you are strong enough, no one will dare to cause you trouble. Then the police, if there is, kill them. Lin Yunyun lowered her head and looked at her blood-stained hands, saying nothing. There's no turning back. Ji Yunan concluded with this sentence. Thus, this young girl who had only lived for 13 years, but had lived through 13 years of purgatory on earth, knew that she was indeed forced into a desperate situation. What do I need to pay? I need your talent. When you become a transcendent, serve me for 3 years, and then I'll set you free. Ji Yunan sat alone in the room. In the end, he did not bring Lin Yunyun back. Instead, he let her continue to cultivate as if nothing had happened. As for the corpses of the hooligans and the family, someone would naturally take care of them. Young Master Nan, the results are out. Wang Dong's voice sounding more respectful than before. Ji Yunan nodded lightly. He knew that as the fuse that led to the destruction of the Long family, his battle last night would definitely be widely publicized, and the fact that he was in the nuance realm could not be hidden from the observant people. Let Ji Yunan become a target, and not let people think that care for one's family deliberately planned this. This was Ji Yunan's plan. Ji Yunan did not mind this. As long as he could complete his task, he did not care how many people were hostile to him, or how many plotted against him. Now, what Ji Yunan received was the detailed results of the powder Lin Yunyun had swallowed. It was no different from what he had guessed. Ash pine powder was a very common addictive drug. Using the word poison was already an exaggeration. Without considering the side effects, how many drugs are more effective than this? Ji Yunan turned to Wang Dong and asked. 4, one of which is a specialty of 66 Amaterasu, using cypress snowgrass as the raw material. It's not addictive. Wang Dong had obviously done his homework, and answered without hesitation. I don't want it if it's not addictive. Ji Yunan waved his hand. Wang Dong was a little shocked, but he still said quickly, there's also a drug called pink powder. It's very high purity, and the effect is very strong, but the side effects are also very strong. It was originally used for astral beasts to induce love. It's good that it's effective, but the side effects. Oh, it's an aphrodisiac. Ji Yunan replied casually, and only realized halfway through his sentence. It's better to give her some ash pine powder normally. Keep the pink powder for now. Letting Lin Yunyun take drugs was one thing, and she could find a place where no one was around to get high. If she switched to an aphrodisiac, it would be hard to hide it. Besides, what happened to Shi Miao made him a little suspicious, but he still needed to verify it further. Lin Yunyun was a good way to test him. A smile appeared at the corner of Ji Yunan's mouth, and Ji Yunyan's calm and indifferent face appeared in his mind. Yes. Wang Dong bowed and answered. After Wang Dong left, Ji Yunan stayed in care for one's family and didn't go out again. He was waiting for the night to come, and then he and Land Marigold would be reincarnated to complete a mission. As for the serial incident, he felt that he had done enough preparation work. The martial arts tournament could basically be controlled in his hands, and the more obvious key figures had also been controlled. He just had to wait for the event to start. At night, Ji Yunan came to a deserted mountain range, and Land Marigold was already waiting for him there. Of course, they wouldn't be reincarnating in care for one's family, so they had to choose a place where no one would notice. As a reincarnator, Land Marigold appeared particularly capable and indifferent. When she saw Ji Yunan coming, she immediately said, "Let's go," the astral array is ready. Ji Nan nodded. He first opened the astral gate and asked Land Marigold to share the mission with him, so that he could get the plane coordinates. The plane coordinates were a very special existence that couldn't be described with words or words. They could only be used during reincarnation. Why are you still 0? Land Marigold saw Ji Nan's astral gate and couldn't help but wonder, after the last mission, you should be at least 1 star. Oh, I forgot to receive the reward. Ji Nan replied casually. Land Marigold's face couldn't help but turn black. She worked herself to death and caused the death of 2 of her teammates, but this guy didn't even care about the reward. Ji Nan really didn't care about the reward of the astral gate. After all, his goal was the sin value, not some broken star. After getting the coordinates of the mission plane, Ji Nan didn't pay much attention to it, and directly said, "Let's go, it's almost time." It was still the familiar scene of reincarnation. The body was placed in the endless void, and the soul was constantly guided until a fixed position before it slowly landed. Then, it was divided into 2. One half merged with the origin of the world, and the other half became the symbol of the soul. It's actually the reincarnation of a demigod soul. Unable to communicate with the soul state, Ji Nan could only mutter in his heart. His consciousness slowly sank, and when he woke up again, he and Land Marigold were lying on a grassland, and there were battle cries everywhere. This seemed to be a battle of pursuit, and Ji Nan was on the fleeing side. There's some trouble. Land Marigold also woke up, and frowned slightly. The karma of my body is to kill one of the leaders of the pursuers. Then kill. Ji Nan didn't care at all, and said casually. At the same time, he began to check the memory of his body. Although he didn't care about karma, he still needed to understand this world. However, when he read the memory, he was completely stunned. This world, at this moment, a loud laughter came from afar. Chapter 55. On the boundless grassland, countless cavalrymen arrived in an instant. They wore the same uniform armor and called themselves the Green Dragon Army. A cavalryman whizzed past Ji Nan and was casually smashed into minced meat by him. The commotion was so loud that Land Marigold was shocked. She looked at Ji Nan's slightly gloomy face and asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Is your karma very troublesome?" Ji Nan shook his head. The original body's memory was still slowly emerging, telling him about the changes in this world over the past 20 years and their current situation. This was actually the immortal demon world 20 years later. The world was in chaos 20 years ago, but now it had become a battle between the southern Chen and northern Jin kingdom. The battle between good and evil 20 years ago was now a battle between the disciples of the 4 sects against the Blue Dragon Hall. Too many things had happened in the past 20 years, and many changes made Ji Nan unable to react at once. But what he couldn't figure out was, why did the immortal demon world suddenly appear 20 years later? Even if the flow of time had changed, it couldn't have crossed such a large distance, and the plane coordinates were also different from before. Could this be a similar twin plane? That couldn't be right. The Blue Dragon Hall was built by Ji Nan himself. While Ji Nan was still puzzled, he heard a voice beside him. "Why are you 2 in a daze? Hurry up and cover the young lady's retreat." A middle-aged man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks scolded the 2 of them. Ji Nan slowly gathered his thoughts and turned to look at Land Marigold, saying, "Are you here to protect the young lady?" "That's right." Ji Nan nodded and looked at the middle-aged man again, saying, "Lead the way." "What did you say?" The middle-aged man was instantly shocked and angry. "You 2 are guards, how can you even protect the young lady?" Slap. Ji Nan slapped him across the face, causing his head to spin 180 degrees and his body to fall heavily onto the ground. "It seems that he doesn't know. Let's find it ourselves," Ji Nan said indifferently as if he had done something trivial. Land Marigold was a little stunned. This was the first time she had gone on such a mission with Ji Nan. The previous tower defense missions had not given Ji Nan any room to perform. No wonder he doesn't care about working with me. Is this his true colors? Land Marigold looked at Ji Nan's side profile and felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. The 2 of them began to wander around the chaotic army. Fortunately, the Blue Dragon Hall cavalry had a clear target. As long as they could determine where they were going, it would not be difficult to find them. Main mission: protect Zhong Yueying for 30 days. There was only one main storyline quest in the evil god's temple, and there was nothing else. Clearly, this was not a side quest, so there was not much to discover. As they ran, the two of them soon reached the edge of the battlefield. For a pursuit battle, this was the core of the battle. Miss, hold on a little longer. The reinforcements from the 4 gates will be here soon. An old man with white hair and beard was fighting bravely. He was covered in blood, but his words were full of vigor. The miss he was talking about was a girl in plain clothes. She held a thin sword in her hand, but she could repeatedly stab the gaps in the cavalry's armor, showing her extremely high level of swordsmanship. To Ji Yunan, this swordsmanship looked a little familiar. Zhong Yueying, you traitor of the Blue Dragon Hall. You might as well give up and die, someone from the Blue Dragon Hall shouted. The sword in Zhong Yueying's hand did not tremble at all. She replied calmly, the Blue Dragon Hall does all kinds of evil and brings disaster to the country. Everyone has the right to punish them. Ha 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 ha, you still want to be a chastity after being a whore. A powerful voice traveled over. The Azure Dragon Army's cavalryman slowly opened up a path, revealing a man in blue armor. The old man's expression changed slightly. Miss, it's the commander of the 6th Army, Huamingda. He reached the peak of the innate stage 2 years ago and is one of the top experts in the world. Old man Bai, you don't have to say anything. Your miss knows better than you. Huamingda sneered. Do you know that she was one of the 5 saintesses in the Blue Dragon Hall? Crack. Before Huamingda could finish his words, a strange sound came from the battlefield, and his words stopped abruptly. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the head of this ever-victorious general slid down slowly. Everyone quietened down, and only then did they realize that there was a figure standing behind him. That person was dressed in white and had black hair. He looked indifferent, as if killing Huamingda was like killing a fly. This was naturally Ji Yunan. After killing Huamingda, he kicked his head away, and it fell right next to Land Marigold. This person was her karma target. The soldiers of the Blue Dragon Hall finally reacted, and all of them roared in anger. He killed the commander. Go, kill him to avenge the commander. Kill. The corners of Ji Yunan's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile as the shadow beneath his feet suddenly expanded and enveloped his surroundings within it, and then numerous sharp blades actually appeared out of thin air within the shadow. Countless soldiers felt pain in their feet, and their bodies were pierced by the shadow blades, and they were all dead. With just this move, more than 100 soldiers of the Blue Dragon Hall died in the hands of Ji Yunan. The dead were sliced cleanly, and only pieces of flesh were left. None of them had a complete body. A large space was cleared around Ji Yunan, and no one dared to move forward. It's a Grandmaster. Run. It's a Grandmaster. The Blue Dragon Hall might be an army, but they were also martial artists, and they had a clear understanding of extraordinary Grandmasters. They were not people that ordinary people could fight against. Innate stage experts might be killed by the army, but once they entered the extraordinary stage, they would be able to control the power of heaven and earth, and activate their supernatural powers. They would not be afraid of the human wave attack. Therefore, the Blue Dragon Hall cavalry left as quickly as they came, and within a few minutes, they were all gone. The white-haired old man and Zhong Yueying were still in a daze. There was no such Grandmaster in the 4 gates. Could it be a newly advanced extraordinary? In any case, the white-haired old man hurriedly came forward and thanked him. Thank you for saving us, sir. May I ask which of the 4 gates you are from? Land Marigold walked forward and said, We are not from the 4 gates, but... Hey. Before she could finish her sentence, Ji Yunan had already punched the white-haired old man's face, and his facial features were completely deformed, and a large part of his face caved in. Zhong Yueying's expression changed. However, the next moment, she blacked out, and she did not know anything. When Zhong Yueying woke up again, she was lying flat in the carriage, and the man and woman who took her away were sitting next to her, talking. She did not dare to open her eyes immediately, and decided to eavesdrop on their conversation. We were supposed to protect her. Why are you so violent? The woman's voice was obviously complaining. The man's next words made Zhong Yueying very anxious. It's just to protect her from death. Isn't it simple to take her away and hide in the deep forest?